This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. Everyone in the audience. Hello, hello, hello.
Good evening.
All right, I will give everyone an opportunity to get logged on, and we'll be getting started in just a moment. All right, it is now 7:05. The Board of Education previously met in closed session under exception C1, C2, and C11. I'd like to call to order the March 9th, 2021 Waukegan Public School Board of Education meeting. If I can have a roll call, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes, President.
Mr. McBride? Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Callahan-Wozniak? Ms. Liquizamo?
Present.
Mr. Castellanos? Mr. Ewing?
Sorry, here. Ms. Wozniak has joined us. Ms. Castellanos, I'm sorry, did I hear you are present? All right, so all board members, so 6 out of 7 are here. We do have a quorum. I would like a motion to go into open session.
Make a motion that we second.
Motion, Mr. Riddle, second, Ms. Hannah. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes,
Mr. McBride? Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Callahan-Wozniak?
Yes.
Ms. Liquizamo?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes. All right. We are now in open session. I do want to make my statement. Those of you who attend regularly, you probably already know what's coming. We are participating remotely as it has been deemed the safest option. And not only that, we are right now, the disaster declaration was extended by 30 days. So our intent, our goal, and our preference is to resume in-person meetings. Right now, based on the governor's extension of the disaster declaration, the maximum number of individuals present for a board meeting remains 10, right? There's 7 board members, there are general counsel, and there is the superintendent. And so our goal, our intent, our preference is to be back in person. But based on this order, this is why we are conducting this meeting remotely, because we want to, or virtually, it's because we want to make sure that we're following the rules that are laid out in order to stop the spread of COVID by the governor. So once again, we will be back in person as soon as it is deemed okay to do. We thought that was coming this month, but that did not happen. So that is why we are meeting remotely, which is, once again, it's not a decision that we make. They've deemed that it is okay to reopen schools, but it is not okay for there to be groups of 10 or more. So that's not a decision that was made by the Board of Education. Thank you all for tuning in. Just a couple housekeeping things. With this being a school board meeting, there is an opportunity for public comment that's later down on the list. So we do ask that anybody who is participating, please mute your microphones. It helps with the transmission. I will also ask, if you're using the chat feature, that's fine. You can. But with this being a board meeting in the format, I will not be reading or responding to comments that are in the chat. Sometimes there are other staff members or district personnel who do monitor and respond to the chat, but similar to if we were meeting in person, there are specific times for the public to participate, and I will call on them at the appropriate time, and the rest of it is for the board to be able to get through its work. I'm sure by now many have received the announcement that the superintendent sent out a little over 2 hours ago. which announces the plan for the start of our hybrid learning. We understand the impact that that will have on our community, and that there are questions. And so as the email stated, there will be forums and opportunities that are coming up in order to ask more questions and get more detailed information. But I do want to let the public know that we are aware that there's a lot of interest around that. And we also understand the impact that has. And just a point of clarification is Mr. McBride has not joined us. So for the record, we have 5 out of 7. So we do still have a quorum. We do still have a quorum, but we do not have Mr. McBride or Edgar who have identified themselves yet, but they should be joining.
I'm here, Brandon.
Mr. McBride is here, so we do have 6 out of 7. All right. With that, I am going to continue to the Pledge of Allegiance. I saw Miss Patty. Miss Patty, if you'd be so kind.
All right. Give me 1 second, sorry. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. And we are going to keep rolling with our special recognition presentations. So once again, if you're not speaking, if you can mute your phones, and Mr. Alajakis, I believe you have this opportunity, this presentation.
I do. Good evening, Board President, Board of Education members, community members, colleagues, and mostly good evening to the committee members who assisted in our renaming process.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Alajakis. I do ask that the board please hold your questions until the end of the presentation if you have any. The second point is this is going to be a lengthy presentation. So Mr. Alajakis wants to provide a detailed view. As a heads up and in preparation, we have 152 people who are on this link. I'm sure there are more people who are watching via YouTube. As of 30 minutes ago, we had 26 people who had signed up for public comment, right? So Board of Education, be prepared that this will be a little bit of a lengthy meeting. So I just wanted to preface that. So please hold your questions until the end of this. And then, as I always talk about, we want to make sure that we give the opportunity to our community. But if every speaker gets 3 minutes, 6 for bilingual, it will take us at least an hour, actually more, 71 minutes, 70 something minutes in order to get through public comment alone. So just I preface that for the community and for the board so you all are aware.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. Like I was saying, most of all, I want to welcome our committee members from Thomas Jefferson and from Daniel Webster Middle School who assisted in this process. Tonight, I'm going to give a bit of a detailed overview of how we got to where we're at, and we're going to get a chance to hear about our final names. The Board of Education will not be taking action this evening, but we'll hear about our final names. And we're also going to have a chance to hear from some of the other committee members. So it's not just Nick speaking to you for a half hour, as much as we'd all enjoy that. Mr. Lee White, I want to thank you for helping us with the presentations. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So we want to just kind of start off with how did all this come about? How did we get to where we are? In the summer, as many of you may remember, community members came forward to the Board of Education with a request to rename Thomas Jefferson Middle School and subsequently Daniel Webster Middle School. In anticipation of taking this on, Board President Ewing worked with, and the rest of the board worked with our legal counsel to update board policy 1204, which is surrounds the naming of facilities, and so they could create kind of a detailed process that we would follow. Then in November, the board took a vote to officially begin that process so that we could rename Jefferson and Webster. Next slide, please. Want to hear kind of detail or lay out some of the processes that's laid out in the policy. 1, we need to establish a renaming committee in accordance with district policy. 2, the committee needs to work together to collectively come up with 6 possible names for the school. 3, the school community votes on 6 names, and the top 3 vote getters advance to the Board of Education. That's the stage we're at now. 4, the board will select a name from the top 3 submissions. And 5, ultimately, the school will officially change its name. So that's a very simple process, and we're going to kind of show us how we went through it. Step 1, establishing a renaming committee in accordance with district policy. The way we were able to, there's requirements that existed. Requirements of these committees are that you must have 4 district residents who are not employed by the district, 1 student who attends the school, 1 board member appointed by the board, 3 members at large. And the members at large can fall into various categories, either above, or they can be employees of the school or representatives of some business and civic organizations. So we worked to recruit committee members at the schools at both Jefferson and at Webster. And up above there, you see one of the little graphics that we used community-wide to recruit individuals who may be interested to join these committees so they can take part in our discussions. Next slide, please. We're going to go over who some of our committee members were. You see here, I'm not going to read off every name. We have a mix of each building will have their building principal. I was fortunate enough to be able to serve on both committees. We had a board member, some parents, students, some staff members, community members. There's our list from Jefferson. If we can move on to Webster, please. Same thing at Webster, a great mix of community members and some parents, students, staff. What you'll notice at Webster is we had some additional members, and you can see the asterisks there. And I'm going to get into a little bit of why we added some additional members as we go along. It's going to begin to make sense to everyone. Next slide, please. So now we're at step 2. Step 2, the committee works together to collectively come up with 6 possible names for the school. So this seems like, right, that's the fun part. You'd think would be the easy part. So what we decided to do as committees, this was both at Jefferson and at Webster, both committees were really interested in ensuring that the community had a voice in this process. So we started back in December and the committees met and we discussed how are we going to solicit names? How are we going to ensure that the community has their say? And so we launched the campaign to solicit potential names. They gave people to either fill out an online form or to call a dedicated phone line where they could submit the nominations. And what you see above there is like it's just one of the few graphics that we used in the solicitation. You see some QR codes. We tried to make it as easy as possible for people to participate in this process. Next slide, please, Mr. White. Now, when you're soliciting names or when you're submitting names, there were some requirements. The board policy lays out some very clear requirements. Individuals can be a national figure, they can be local leaders, local educators, or individual residents. And these board policy kind of lays out what defines each person so that when you have an individual in mind, you have to ask yourself, do they fit one of these 4 categories? If the answer is yes, you can submit them as a possible name. Next slide, please. Now we had, I'd say, fairly overwhelming response. I think probably more than some of us expected. At Jefferson, we received 459 nominations. At Webster, we received 352 nominations. Now, at both schools, we obviously had some overlaps. Some people were, some names we saw for both buildings. And then we also saw some names submitted multiple times, as you can imagine. But so those were the names that we had to start with, the 459 and the 352. Obviously now we had to narrow that down. How do we get from 459 names, from 352 names, down to 6? That was kind of the committee's next challenge. And, you know, we talked long about it. How do we do that? And we created some systems that we thought were going to assist. And I'm going to go over some of those now. At Jefferson, we started where each committee member selected 3 names that they wanted to move on to the next round. And so committee members were able to submit their names along with a bio and a rationale why they wanted to support those names. And after the committee members did that, we ended up with 22 distinct different names. From there, the committee, which is made up of about 11 individuals, then took those names and narrowed it down even further. So as part of the process, committee members we were essentially given 12 points, and you could spend your 12 points anywhere you want. It was kind of a unique thing. And so you can give your points to any candidate. You can give them all to one candidate, you know, split them up between the candidates, and then the 10 candidates with the most points move on to the next round. So the next slide is just sort of an example. You know, if you really like 4 candidates of the 22, here's sort of how you could split up your, that's more than 12 points. I clearly don't know math, but you get the gist of it. Pretend that added up to 12. And so the 22 names we had were what you see in front of you. We had a good mix of names from different areas, and ultimately the 10 names, and actually there were 11 because there was a tie, moved on to the next round. And that was, you know, the Honorable George Bridges Sr., who's a long career in Waukegan in law enforcement and as a judge. Cesar Chavez, who's known for his work in labor rights and civil rights. Current Mayor Sam Cunningham, the late Reverend Waukegan Francis from Shiloh Baptist. Vice President Kamala Harris, Dolores Huerta, who did a lot of work with Cesar Chavez, again, in some immigrant rights, labor rights. Astronaut Mae Jefferson, civil rights icon and late Congressman John Lewis, President Barack Obama, First Lady Michelle Obama, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Those were the 11 names the committee at Jefferson had as its final 11, and were then kind of work to narrow down further. So if we can go to the next slide. So how did we go even, how did we continue to narrow it down? Well, from there, the committee, you know, we had some, once we had those final 11 names, we met and we determined which names we felt should move on to the final 6. And it was a long discussion. It was a difficult discussion where, you know, individuals were able to, you know, based on the scoring, based on, you know, kind of pitching, having a chance to pitch a name to each other, we finally came up with 6 names. And these were going to be the 6 names the community was going to vote on at Jefferson. And that one thing, and I'm going to explain this, you see right there, you see Barack and Michelle Obama are combined. As a committee, you know, both of them received quite a bit of votes. There was no clear decision on, you know, which one is more deserving than the other to be Obama Middle School. We were kind of reluctant to submit 2 different Obamas. And so as board policy permits, we decided to submit the Obamas together. So should, you know, the student body and the Jefferson community vote for this, they would be voting for Barack and Michelle Obama Middle School combined. Then we also, another combined school that came up was Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez. And that's based on the work they did together, you know, in their creation of the National Association of Farm Workers, their work with migrant workers for labor rights for out west. And so we thought that just because of the work they did, they could kind of be combined together. And it's not uncommon to see those 2 names together in buildings. Additionally, Pastor Waukegan Francis, Congressman Lewis, George Bridges Sr., and Mae Jefferson. Those made up the final 6 that were ultimately submitted to the Jefferson community to vote. I'm going to hold you guys in suspense for a little bit. We're going to get back to see how that turned out. At Webster, the committee members each selected 6 names that they wanted to move on to the next round from that list of 352 that we discussed. And we ended up with a total of 33 different names at Webster. The committee then voted to narrow down that list even further. In this process, it was a little different. At the process at Webster, what ended up happening is that you were able to give 6 points to your top candidate, 5 to your second, 4 to your third, et cetera. And we added up the point totals from there. So we go through a little example again on the next slide on kind of how that works. And my numbers are correct there. So I'm excited for that. But it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, whichever candidate you want to give your points to, then we add up the points at Webster. And this is how we come up with our final. It was actually 13 names. It was, again, because we had a tie for the last place. And so at Webster, our final 13 was Miriam Besley. She was actually an educational pioneer from Waukegan who I didn't know before the process started. You know, people had asked me when Ms. Placencia was appointed superintendent several years ago if she was the first woman superintendent in Waukegan. I didn't know the answer to that. Well, apparently, more than 100 years ago, we had Miriam Besley, who started in Waukegan and went on to do work on a national stage as a superintendent. There was also Eleanor Taylor Bland. She's an author that some people may recognize with ties to Waukegan. She wrote some crime novels with back about a couple decades ago, author Ray Bradbury, again, the Honorable George Bridges, current senior board member, Miss Anita Hanna, Eugene Head, who was a former longtime educator in Waukegan and actually a former principal at Webster, Mae Jemison, again, a name you may recognize from Jefferson, the astronaut, Katherine Johnson, who was a mathematician who worked with NASA, who was popularized from a movie a few years ago. John Lewis, again, a civil rights icon, later a congressman. The Obamas, Ellen Ochoa, who's an astronaut, and Edith Smith. Edith Smith was another local name that came forward, and Ms. Smith was one of the parents that was instrumental in the desegregation at Whittier that the board discussed a couple months ago, and she went on to become a school board member. She also then worked for the district for many years and had an inspirational story that a lot of individuals on the committee were drawn to. What you see here, if you can, Leah, you can go back, please, to that current slide. You see here, Ms. June McGuire and Ms. Anita Hanna were both committee members who happened to receive votes and enough to move on to that next round. Because they were committee members, they both chose to step down from the committee at that point to allow the committee to move on the process without them on, since they were committee members, and they were nominated. So they were replaced, as you saw in one of the previous slides. Ms. Hanna was a board member, which was Ms. Lucy Leguizamo, and then June McGuire was replaced by Ty Rohr from the Waukegan Historical Society, who kind of helped us in the last stages of this process. So now we can move on, please, Lee. So based on the voting, based on the Webster team coming together, having some discussions, it was decided to submit 6 names to the school community. There was Edith Smith, who we discussed earlier, Ms. Katherine Johnson, Congressman John Lewis, Mae Jemison, Ellen Ochoa, and the Honorable George Bridges Sr. Those were the 6 names submitted to the Webster community for vote. Step 3, the school community will vote on 6 names, and the top 3 vote getters advance to the Board of Education. So what's happened recently, the school received those 6 names, and the parents, the staff, and the students at those schools had a chance to vote for which names they wanted to see move on. They were allowed to vote for up to 3 candidates. Some took advantage, some did not vote for the full 3 candidates. And what you see here is the total number of votes that were received. Next slide, please. So the top 3 vote earners from Jefferson, and these are the names that the Board of Education will have a chance to vote on, were Barack and Michelle Obama Middle School, John Lewis Middle School, and Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez Middle School. And you see the percentage of votes that they received there. Next slide. And at Webster, our top 3 vote earners were Ellen Ochoa Middle School, Katherine Johnson Middle School, and Edith Smith Middle School. And again, you see on your screen the percentage of the votes that these individuals received from the parents, the students, and the staff at the school. Next slide, please. So step 4, the board will select a name. That's not happening tonight, as we discussed. I tentatively, Lee, if we can move on, please. Tentatively, that is scheduled for the March 23rd board meeting. And they'll, as we've stated a few times, select from those 3 names that you see. Next slide. And step 5, the school will officially change its name. And as you'll see on the following slide, that decision has been made for that change to officially take effect July 1st, 2021. If we can go on to the next slide. We do have some reflections. There were some committee members that I know wanted to kind of share their reflections on the process. I know people one thing that we heard a lot was, people considered that, very fortunate to be a part of this process. This is a once in a lifetime event for many people, to be involved in something that, we were able to be so inclusive and involve the community and so many people. And so some folks just kind of want to talk a little bit about that. If the board could please engage in that a bit. I know Miss Biggs from Jefferson, she's a staff member at Jefferson. I believe she's on the line. Ms. Biggs, do you mind kind of speaking first, or talk a little bit about the process and how it played out and your thoughts on everything?
That'd be great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Amber Biggs. I am a teacher at Thomas Jefferson. I am also the parent of some students at Thomas Jefferson, a Jefferson graduate, and a Waukegan community member. This process was great. It was very interesting. It felt like we were becoming a part of history. It was arduous at times because we had a lot to say, and we discussed and debated actively, voting for the people that we thought were the best to represent our community and our schools, and to make sure that they were equitable people and that they would represent us well, obviously. But I was very glad to be a part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Biggs. And I know Victor was possibly going to speak as well. Victor, are you on the line? And Victor Hinojosa was the student from Jefferson that served on the committee. And Victor was kind of one of the spark plugs on the team, made sure to keep us focused, and was never shy about telling the adults what we should be doing. So it was great to have him be on the team. Ms. Schaefer, is there anything else you'd like to say just from the Jefferson standpoint before we hand it over to, before we move on to Webster?
Hi, everyone. I just want to say we had, I think the committee worked well together. I did learn a lot about the community in the process, and just thanks to all the committee members who did a lot of work on these suggestions.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. We're going to then move on to Webster. Mr. Heineman, I don't know if you're on and if you'd like to say any words.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. For me, you know, I'm a teacher in Waukegan, and before I interviewed at Waukegan, I had never been in Waukegan before, but I've been teaching here now for 12 years, and I think what I got most out of this process was really being viewed as a part of the community in Waukegan. I got to know a lot about Waukegan's history. I got to know about some really fantastic people who are from Waukegan. And so all that was really rewarding for me. It also built a lot of pride for me and the school and the district, and of course the city of Waukegan. Like it really made me very, very proud to be a part of this place.
Thank you, Mr. Heineman. And I don't know if there was anybody else from the Webster committee that did want to speak. Otherwise, Ms. Brown, is there anything you'd like to, Ms. Principal Brown from Webster, is there anything you'd like to end us with before we turn it over to the board for some questions?
Well, I would just like to say that the whole process was amazing. There was rich dialogue, and I got to learn a lot and felt very connected with the community and those that collaborated on this venture. I want to thank Nick Alajakis for doing this and leading us through this journey. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Before we do move on, I see Ms. Murphy, who was on our Jefferson team. One of the is on, and I could see her camera, so she can't hide now. Ms. Murphy, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there anything you'd like to say about the process?
Well, hi, how are you guys? Yes, I actually had a great time with everyone. I'm sorry, I'm looking at people on different screens. I had a great time with everyone. At times we did, we were never disrespectful, and that was my biggest thing. And I appreciated working with everyone and everybody, hearing other people out. And a lot of people, I remember afterwards, changed my mind on some things. So I just enjoyed the openness. And Victor, who is the student, and I'm so sorry you guys didn't get to hear from him, is amazing. And I know he's going to be like somebody's president one day. And I enjoy seeing the students do that. So this is for them. And it was a great time. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Again, thank you to all the committee members. You guys took a lot of time out of your schedules to participate in these meetings, to exchange thoughts and ideas. And I want to just thank you guys for that. I want to thank the Board of Education for the opportunity to do this. I know everybody, was honored to be able to be a part of this process. We're looking forward to seeing how it plays out. I'm going to stop talking now, kind of open it up to the board. If you guys have any questions of myself, of my fellow committee members, I don't want to, answer all the questions if I'm sure they're more than capable of doing so.
I had one question, Nick. I didn't know Victor was a student. That young man is, he was outrageous in the meeting, man. I didn't realize he was a student. I thought I was just listening. I said, here's somebody that's 50 years old just talking. Wow, I have to echo what one of the committee members said, that he's gonna be somebody's president one day. I'm just learning that. But anyway, I thought the process went well, and I thought you navigated us through the whole ordeal without having any conflicts. I thought we were very, like somewhere I heard everybody say, we're very respectable to each other, and I enjoyed it, and it was just intriguing to me. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
This is Leguizamo.
Ms. Leguizamo. And then for the sake of time, I know it's so important work, and me and Mr. Alajakis, we worked hard on this, but things happen and changed our plans. So we did think that we would spend a little bit more time in discussion. But as you all know, with the announcement, there were some important updates. And so we do have a rather lengthy meeting. So I want to spend maybe 5 more minutes on this to make sure if there are any last questions or comments. And then, continue on with, there's be a presentation and then public comment. So go ahead, Ms. Leguizamo.
Thank you, Board President. I actually don't have questions, but I did have 2 comments, in which first comment, I just wanted to say I was quite surprised to see, and I was really hoping that in the end we would have a lot more local leader names, and it ended up being a lot more national names, and those were the top 2 for both buildings. So I was quite surprised to see that, but it was there. So second comment, I just wanted to make, as also being part of a committee member here, it was very enriching, as everyone had spoke about, and as we can see about the adults describe how the conversation around this was so enriching, that I just want to make a comment that I truly believe that our students would also benefit if our school district were to expand the curriculum to include Waukegan curriculum of a sort, to celebrate and to learn about Waukegan's rich history from, elementary all the way into high school. I think that would be amazing. And so I just wanted to make those 2 comments. So thank you.
And the reason that we did, and it was a little bit lengthier program, is I get calls to see, hey, why is the board dedicating this amount of time? Or I'm just finding out about it. This has been an ongoing conversation as we've discussed equity going back to June, right? So it's not something that kind of sprung up out of the blue, but I understand how some people may not have been in the loop with what was going on or followed the school board closely. So I wanted people to see that this process was open, it was transparent, it was diverse. We wanted to hear from a lot of different voices. We gave a lot of thought into the process. We learned a lot through the process. I was not a voting member, right? So I got to attend and I was a fly on the wall, and you guys know me, it was hard for me not to talk. But I tried really hard, and I did not speak unless I was called on to ask a clarifying question about policy or, process. And so it was great to see how our community worked together through their diversity. And I think we have some quality individuals who, and I also want to make clear before we move on, there's this idea that we will no longer teach about, Americans like Thomas Jefferson and Webster. There's no intent, and not teaching about our founding fathers and those who contributed to this country, and doing it in an honest way, which our history teachers take pride in. What we are doing right now, thinking about doing right now, is now I'm going to give the opportunity for people to provide feedback, and then the board will, at a future meeting, be making a decision. So thank you to all of those who participated in the committees. Thank you to all of those who reached out via email with either support or opposition. I think I want to make clear is we will teach history, but when we started this process, we started it from the lens of equity. It was a grassroots movement that started with students who asked the very question is why am I going to the school that's named after a slave owner? And after months and months of discussions, they vocalized along with Mr. McIntyre, who took that energy, actually presented a petition and started the conversation around what are we really doing, and what do we in Waukegan Public Schools want to be known for, and what are the characteristics of individuals that we want to be celebrated at our school buildings. And so thank you. And with that, I'm going to, one sec. There's another presentation. I know there are a lot of people who are here due to the announcement. And so this is a video presentation that we will watch as long as there's no snafus, and then we will continue on the public comment and then with the rest of our meeting.
Board President, before we start, sorry, Victor is on the line now. I'm so sorry to take us back, but Mr. Hinojosa, I did promise you a chance to address the Board of Education. And since you're on the line, would you like to do so and talk about the process a little bit today?
First off, I really want to say I apologize for, didn't come late. My computer didn't want to work, and I was going through my phone and it didn't want to work, so I had to download an app and everything for this to work. But I do apologize profusely for going back in time, but I did hear all your beautiful comments about me, and I thank you. But so we don't run out of time for the other issues at hand in front of the board, I want to say thank you for all the members coming in and helping us out finding these names, and that this thing we did was important, that we decided something that will go down in history, as that we decided a name that is important for all of us. And that I really do thank everyone for the time they spent helping out, choosing the names, having cordial discussions on these names. And I also want to thank everyone for the name suggestions and everything, and for the school board to choose one of these three names and pick a right name that will go down as a great name for this school. And that we all decided something that will go down in history, and that we all did our part. And with that, I say thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
Just curious, Victor.
I only want to say something real quick. I'm sorry, Ms. Leguizamo. Now, it's because we've regressed, but I do want to celebrate our student voices. And so one of the things when the board looked at the policy, we said we want to have a student voice. And I always appreciate and love student advocacy. I was one of those students who was in the principal's office asking, why is this, why not that, how come? And when I tell you, Victor, as well as our other student members, they would speak out, and Victor's like, hey, I think we should be making these choices because it impacts us. And he advocated to give greater voice to the students. And I think that was, something that he pushed for, and he worked really hard so that it wasn't just Victor's opinions, right? He had a thought, he had an opinion, but he wanted to work with the students in the school specifically in order to make sure that the board knew how students felt about certain individuals and really involved the Jefferson school community. So thank you to both student participants, all three, with 3 student participants at both Jefferson and Webster. So we appreciate that. Ms. Leguizamo, last word, and now we do have to fly.
No, I was just going to ask Victor really quick. he doesn't have to disclose because, you're voting as you become an adult. You don't have to disclose this. But I was just wondering, do you want to share who you voted for?
Oh, who I voted for? Well, I voted for Michelle and Barack Obama, John C. Lewis, and Mao Jennings.
All right. Just wanted to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. So yes, like as I was mentioning, is there was an important announcement that was made today. We understand the impact that this has on our community. There's a short video that's been prepared by the superintendent, and we are going to watch that now. So.
Yeah, Board President, I'd like to say a couple words before we go into our video. First of all, I'd like to thank all our stakeholders for all their support over this past year. I really want to give a round of applause and kudos to all District 60 staff who's really stepped up to the plate to educate all our children and keep our district running during this pandemic. And I just thank you, thank you, thank you. I also want to state that this decision to now go into our hybrid phase was not an easy decision. I want you to know that I heard you. I heard you to offer opportunities for vaccination. I heard you to allow time for your second vaccination. I even heard the April 29th date of let's return after spring break. I've heard of the efficacy period of the 14 days. I heard of the amount of COVID cases that we see not only in Waukegan, but in Lake County. And I want you to know that on behalf of the Board of Education and the district, we took all of this into account. I know that there is still much apprehension out there. This is our first national pandemic that we're all going through. This is not going to be an easy lift. But one thing I have heard from Waukegan and all our staff is that together we will get through this. And we've got through the last year together. We will get through and we will conquer this together as District 60 staff. And I know that in my heart. I know that when I run into people at Jules or out, I know that we can handle this transition. And it is now time for us to bring our babies back into school. So I just want to let you know that on behalf of the Board of Education, we heard you. I read your emails. I thanked you for your input. That was just not a line. I actually read them. I took them into consideration. I prayed on them. And I really want to reiterate how grateful I am for all the support, for all the stakeholders, and for all the staff that has been so dedicated to the students of Waukegan. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And on that note, can we please show the video? Mr. White, you can go ahead and hit play, please.
So these are those technical difficulties that we talk about. I think the superintendent, during superintendent time, if we want to make sure that we have the video ready to go. But I think this is an appropriate time.
I think it's loading right now. I think you should be ready. Mr. Alajakis, are we ready to go with this?
Hello, I'm Chisa Placencia, here with my son Malachi.
There is no picture.
Malachi and I have been on the roller coaster that is remote learning since last March. For 12 months, we have worked to adapt to a new way of life. We've been forced to change the way we learn, the way we teach, and the way we support our own families. Through this global pandemic, as a mother and an educator, I've seen firsthand how our children, staff, families have been affected by the uncertainties of COVID. I have also been inspired by the resilience and adaptability of our amazing Waukegan Public Schools community and the strength of our spirit. We know this constant uncertainty has made life difficult for all of us. Today, we are excited to announce we are finally ready to begin the transition back to a more familiar way of life. Our district has finalized the dates that will officially begin our hybrid plan. This was not an easy decision, but after months of careful consideration and important dialogue with our families and bargaining units, we believe we are ready to safely open Waukegan Public Schools. I truly believe this decision is in the best interest of our students as we use the final months of this school year as a bridge to prepare us for the 2021 through 2022 school year. Our hybrid plan will begin on Monday, March 29th, with the return of our teachers and other staff into our buildings. That week will be dedicated to orientation and professional development, and no instruction will be conducted. For our students, this means they will have an extended spring break. Week 2 of our plan begins on April 5th, with hybrid instruction officially beginning for our students in grades pre-K, kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd. On April 12th, hybrid instruction begins for students in grades 3rd and 4th. The following week, on April 19th, hybrid instruction for students in grades 5, 6, 9, and 12 will begin. And finally, on April 26th, hybrid instruction begins for students in grades 7th, 8th, 10th, and 11th. Parents will continue to have an option to keep their children home for remote learning if they feel that is in the best choice for their family. As of today, about 30% of our families have opted for hybrid learning. The planning that has gone into preparing our schools for this transition has been immense, and we have been fortunate to work collaboratively with our bargaining units to establish procedures and processes that will lead to a safer learning environment for the children in our district, like Malachi. We talked in the last year about using health metrics and data to guide our decisions. We have seen some fantastic plans recently. Most notably, the 7-day average incidence rate in our community has been below 14 per 100,000. This is a number local health experts recommend for the safe return of hybrid instruction. Another major factor in this decision is the availability of vaccines for our staff and teachers. We have been fortunate to partner with organizations like Lake County Health Department and Walgreens to make these important vaccines available to our staff. Within the next few days, we believe the majority of our staff who are interested in receiving the COVID-19 vaccine will have received their second dose. These last 12 months have been hard. COVID has had a devastating effect on our community, on our families, and on our children. We know that reality isn't going to change simply because our buildings are opened again. But if there's one undeniable thing I've learned, it is that our staff and families can do remarkable, monumental things when we work together for our children. This transition to hybrid instruction is going to take us working together like never before. I know we can do it. I know you're all going to make me proud, and I know we will work as a community for all our babies. I want to thank you for everything you have done for our district. I want to thank you for the support, for the prayers, for the acknowledgments, and most of all, I want to thank you so much for educating our babies and my baby too.
Our family thanks you.
Vuestra familia les agradece. Our family thanks you.
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 As I mentioned, tonight's meeting is a board meeting that we typically have every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. And so there are a lot of questions. Our meetings, there are COVID things, and we will speak to those as they come up on the agenda. But there will and are other opportunities and avenues for people to ask questions, right? The superintendent and I have talked routinely on making sure that there are avenues for both staff as well as our public, being parents and students who will have questions, to be able to ask those questions. And now that we have a date, I feel comfortable saying, as the superintendent has said in her letter states, is we're looking and following the science as we make these decisions. There were many board members who had the opportunity to walk buildings today to see some of the things that are going on and have been put in place. I went to Jack Benny, which is my alma mater, and there were ventilation units, right, that were installed, which not only provide air conditioner, heating, and things like that. Today, the teachers actually have thermostat control. You know, as long as I've been in Waukegan Public Schools, that wasn't something that was in the classrooms, right? So there have been, you know, improvements to ventilation, as that was a concern. The building team, they understand how this has impacted our community, and they're proud of the work that they've done. And they wanted to brag to me about, you know, we had one janitor who said, I stayed up at night just thinking about how I could more efficiently make sure that I'm able to get my work done tomorrow, because we need to make these buildings safe for our kids and our staff. And so this is not a decision that was made in isolation. It's not a decision that we, it's become redundant at this, but it is an unprecedented time. And I think that their school districts are doing what they can. And I stand by our decision to put safety first. And I still believe that we are putting safety first. And that is important as we move forward. It's not a by any means, right? We're watching the statistics, but the statistics show us that we're trending in the right direction. The statistics support reopening, and my emails from students also support reopening. So I think at this point we will watch it, we will prepare, we will make sure that we continue asking the tough questions and answering the tough questions. But as I stated today, I don't want people to believe that this was a decision that was made rashly or, you know, without due diligence, and that there have been people in the buildings working around the clock and still are in preparation for the return of our students. So with that, Superintendent, I don't know if you wanted to say anything. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to public comment.
Just thank you for everyone and your support.
With that, we are moving to public comment. Mr. Alajakis, do you have the sign-up list? Just a reminder, as Mr. Alajakis gets that together, individuals have the opportunity to sign up and address the board. This is a opportunity that I think is unique to America and American democracy, and that you have the opportunity, everyone to be able to address the board. So we will not, it's not a dialogue, it's an opportunity for you to speak. And if you need translation services will be provided to you. We do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, 6 minutes for translation services, and avoid from using staff or student names in your remarks. With that, Mr. Alajakis, what's the first name on the list?
Good evening, Board President. The first name on the list tonight is Adriana Gonzalez.
Adriana, are you on the line?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me?
We can. Whenever you're ready, your time will start.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I was going to talk a little bit about the committee opportunity that I had to be part of the Webster renaming, but I think all of you guys did a really great job, and I hope that the community just keeps their hearts open for the renaming and what it could mean as memories for new students and current students. So I was really, really happy about that, and you know, I'm ecstatic about what's to come. The other thing I wanted to mention is that as part of the Waukegan Schools Foundation, we have a $5,000 scholarship for Waukegan graduates, one Waukegan graduate. And I mean, I'm hoping it's because the kids are procrastinating, that they maybe aren't applying. But I know between this one and other scholarship opportunities that I know about, students are just not submitting applications. And I don't know if that's because our GPA requirement is too high. I don't know if that's because students are still struggling sort of getting a handle of, you know, balancing their academics and maybe applying to college and other applications. But I just wanted to make that announcement so that, you know, teachers, counselors, and then, you know, members of the board can please share those resources, because I mean, there's 172 people here. I've said it multiple times in different meetings and on social media, but I fear that, you know, people are not going to have the money that they need to get to college and are going to struggle with that. So that is it for my public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Mr. Alexakis, next name on the list.
Next name we have is William Coleman.
Mr. Coleman, are you on the line? William Coleman. Mr. William Coleman. All right, Mr. Coleman, if you are on the line and can hear me, please try and get my attention either in the chat. If you have prepared remarks, you can email those to me as well at bewing@wps60.org, and they can be read into the record. Mr. Alexakis, next name on the list.
The next name this evening is Chet Mack.
Chet, are you on the line?
Yes, could you hear me?
Yes, sir. Whenever you're ready, your time will start.
Yes, I was wondering, us taxpayers of Waukegan, I keep hearing things that Teresa lives in Florida now, and she spends a lot of time down there. So I wish she would squash the idea that she's spending a lot of time, our tax dollars, because that's the word that's being spread around, that she's spending a lot of time in Florida and also making her main home in Florida, which she can't do because her main home has to be in Waukegan. And then also about Common Core, has anybody ever looked into Common Core before Common Core came about? That the academics was better before Common Core came around. I think Common Core is holding the kids down. Is there a ranch in Florida called the Jesse James Ranch? Does anybody know? It's called Stick 'em Up, tax dollars. And Brandon, you said you weren't going to run again. What changed your mind, Brandon, that you're going to run again? Could you tell the taxpayers why you're going to run again, Brandon? Remember when we talked in November, Brandon, you and I talked about our failing school system here in Waukegan, and then you hung up on me, and you never called me back when you said you would. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Chet. Mr. Alexakis, next name on the list.
The next name this evening is Barryworth, possibly? Werth on the last name.
Yes.
All right. Whenever you're ready, your time will start.
Okay, thank you. So being a preschool teacher, and I am speaking on behalf of a lot of the preschool teachers in the district, there's a lot of frustration with not knowing what materials are being allowed back in our classrooms, what we're allowed to do with our students, specifically those that are DL students. That was one point I had. The other point, rooms, especially in my building, the rooms don't have windows. So I would like to know what proper ventilation has been put in place to secure that the airflow is good quality in there, as well as with having preschoolers, how diapering and proper social distancing will be taking place. as well as I want to know, with us returning on the 29th and with Easter coming up that weekend, how will it work with staff as well as students who will be going out of town on Easter or being with families, how that would work with coming then into school that Monday and not having a COVID case already on our hands. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and for taking the time to speak with the board. As I mentioned, there will be platforms to get questions answered, and I don't know what responses the superintendent will be responding to during superintendent time. Next name on the list, Mr. Alajakis.
The next name is Amy Newman.
Ms. Newman, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can, Amy. So whenever you're ready, your time will start.
Thank you. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Glenwood. This is my 17th year in the district. I truly love Waukegan. I'm here tonight because I'm very concerned about our return for various reasons. One of which was just mentioned, that staff and students are going to be traveling over spring break. So before, the concern was coming back right after winter break, that people would be traveling and that there needed to be some sort of timing between when they, when people came back into town and when they returned to schools. We don't have anything in place for that. So they'll come right from spring break and being on planes and who knows where, right into our schools. My other concern, quite honestly, is that we finally got our kids into a routine. Our kids finally feel comfortable with what we're doing. They know how to log in, where to go, when to go. They know when lunch is. And we're changing all of that. And we're changing all of that for 2 half days a week. That's adding more stress to the students, the parents, and the staff. Ms. Placencia and board, you have done such an amazing job over the last year keeping everyone safe. Please consider the ramifications of us returning directly after spring break. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Mr. Alajakis, what is next name on the list?
The next name on the list simply listed as Vanessa. So a Vanessa that would have signed up just before 8 a.m. this morning to speak.
Vanessa, are you on the line? Vanessa. All right, Vanessa, if you can hear me, or please use the chat. Same thing. Is it anyone on the bilingual line, Vanessa? All right, Mr. Alajakis, if you would please move on to the next name on the list.
Our next name is Michelle Talub.
Hi,
Ms.
yes,
Talub, are
I'm
you
here.
on the line? All right, Ms. Talub, whenever you're ready.
I am here. My name is Michelle Tolub. I am a resident and teacher of 10 years here in Waukegan. My comments today changed drastically 2 hours ago. 3 hours ago, I was under the impression that the Board of Education of Waukegan had heard the pleas of its teachers. 3 hours ago, I thought there was an understanding that the board would adhere to the practice of waiting 2 weeks, as they did at winter break, to watch metrics before entering buildings. 2 hours ago, I felt safer. Now, with the announcement of going to hybrid, I have muddled emotions. I know that the few precious days that we will have face-to-face will be taken up with measure of academic testing, state testing, and access testing. The actual days of real education happening will be down to about 4 or 5 days, and I wish that was an exaggeration. Beyond testing, there has been some communication via videos as to what students will do when they come into the buildings, but many of the questions that the teachers have and the staff have gone unanswered. Some of those questions are what happens to our encore teachers who are expected to move from room to room in the elementary district, the elementary buildings? What has happened to the ventilation to buildings that have interior rooms with only ventilation access to the outdoors through one vent and no others? What will happen to the students who don't wear their masks? According to the videos, it will be dealt with through, quote, progressive interventions. What does that mean? As a teacher, I do not want to be the enforcer of wearing the masks. There will be enough for me to do without that fight. The Waukegan board president said at the beginning of this meeting that these meetings have to be remote because we need to stop the spread of COVID. According to our governor, yet you are asking your children and your staff to go into the buildings. If your children are able to be at school, doesn't that mean that at least the 7 board members should meet in person as well? Thank you for listening to my message.
Mr. Aljakis, do you have the next name on the list?
The next name I have is Jay Schwartz. Now, Jay is also one of about a dozen individuals who emailed me their comments. So if Mr. Schwartz is not on the line, I can read his comment into the record.
Mr. Schwartz, are you on the line? All right, Mr. Aljakis, if you would be so kind to read those comments.
Gladly. This is from Mr. Schwartz. He's a teacher at the Brookside campus. As a matter of safety, I feel that vaccinated teachers should not be required to co-teach with other teachers or paras who have not been vaccinated yet, especially when they teach in the mini classrooms designed for 10 or fewer students. That completes his message.
Thank you, Mr. Aljakis. All right, Mr. Aljakis, next name on the list, please.
Next name on the list is Jamie Gifford, and Jamie also submitted comments in writing.
Ms. Gifford, are you on the line? Jamie, are you on the line? All right, Mr. Aljakis, if you would read the comments. Or the comment, please.
I will. Before I begin, I do want to state that, as you can imagine, many of these comments did come in prior to our announcement this afternoon about hybrid learning. Now, I haven't read the comments, but I just kind of want to preface that just in case some of the comments seem to be dated. I'm going to read them exactly as they were submitted when I received them. First of all, I would like to thank you for the manner in which you have handled these unprecedented times. Your consideration for our students, staff, and community has not gone unnoticed. As we move forward, I would implore you to continue to heed caution and to carefully consider the risk to reward ratio for any hybrid or return to school plans. The last version of the hybrid plan raises many concerns. First and foremost, the amount of screen time and schedules for our students is too much. After a year of remote schooling, I feel it is safe to say all students and teachers have learned that remote and screen fatigue is a real thing. Increasing screen time is not a good idea. Secondly, the daily schedule does not seem realistic. 51-minute classes for high school classes is too long, whether remote or in person. The travel time is tight considering our busing situation and walk times for other students. Rushing from building to home seems stressful and unsafe. Another concern is the return of teachers to classrooms before students return to buildings and during remote afternoons. As we have all established meaningful patterns and routines remotely from home, asking staff to move to the buildings before their students seems counterproductive. Keeping teachers in classrooms when students have exited the building is also questionable. Teaching remotely from buildings with no students in stripped, empty classrooms seems punitive and not in the best interest of the staff. In addition, the hybrid schedule does not mention expectations for Fridays, asynchronous or synchronous instruction, resource and enrichment support hours, etc. The hybrid plan seems to raise more questions than it answers. I also think a detailed, transparent report regarding building upgrades or modifications, for example, the ventilation systems, is warranted. The lack of information raises many concerns and questions for staff and students alike. Thank you for continued work in creating a safe, effective learning environment for our staff and students.
Thank you, Mr. Aljakis. Next name on the list, please.
The next name on the list simply states Frank. Now I have a submitted statement from Mr. Francis McCormick. I assume that's him. If he's not on the line to speak for himself, I'd be happy to read it.
Frank, anybody sign up named Frank? All right, go ahead, Ms. Aljagas, and read that comment from Mr. McCormick.
Thank you to the members of the board for taking time to listen. I'm going to appeal to my background in economics and discuss how I have approached the debate about whether to reopen so close to the end of the year. A marginal benefit analysis, which has us look at the additional benefits of late year transition to hybrid versus the additional costs. As we have heard before, the additional costs of returning to buildings with so little time in the school year are many. And while the disruption to learning from a big change in the final weeks is significant enough to warrant restraint, my biggest concern is the latest CDC warnings about the variant-driven surge in April or May, one that Europe is currently undergoing and has forced them back into lockdown. These variant-driven surges are especially risky for communities like Waukegan because they present reinfection risks for those who already contracted earlier variants, and certain variants can affect vaccine efficacy. Even now, schools in our area are having to shift some schools back into remote learning for weeks at a time or quarantine large groups of students and staff, and this is with a flat-line curve. With what we are witnessing and with what the CDC has warned, it is the marginal benefit for one full day of instruction of a handful of students for at most 6 to 7 weeks worth of all the marginal costs that have been discussed, especially ones pertaining to public health. I'm sorry, that was a question, not a statement. We are possibly 10 weeks away from vaccinations for the general public. I cannot imagine any marginal benefit analysis which would suggest that the marginal benefit of an end of the year transition to hybrid outweigh all the marginal costs. It would be a shame if we had to learn that so close to the end of the school year. Thank you for your time and for listening.
Thank you for that comment. Ms. Aljagas, next name on the list.
The next name this evening is Michelle Pinta. Ms. Pinta has also submitted her comments in writing if she is not on the line.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can, Ms. Pinta, so whenever you're ready, your time will start.
Okay, I'm like, okay. And I did, please know I did submit this before the latest announcement. Good evening, Superintendent Placencia, President Ewing, board members, teachers, and community members. First of all, I wanted to thank Ms. Placencia and the board for keeping us safe over the past year, and a huge thank you to the district for getting us into the vaccination pod at Deerfield High School. I know if it were not for that opportunity, my husband and I, as well as I'm sure many other staff members, would still be waiting. I am not sure if any final decisions have been made in regards to returning to in-person learning, so if they have not, I would ask that you continue to play it safe and also consider how disruptive a return to in-person learning would be this late in the game. At this point, students and staff have gotten into a routine, and to have students get used to new routines and new schedules, which for some grade levels would actually be 3 new schedules, seems counterproductive to everything we've been doing so far, especially when it would be for only a couple of half days a week. Again, I cannot thank you enough for keeping our safety at the forefront of your decision-making process over the last year. I have confidence that this will remain your priority moving forward. Thank you again and stay safe.
Thank you, Ms. Pinta. Mr. Aljagas, do you have the next name on the list?
The next name this evening is Malaya Wilson. And I
Ms.
do
Wilson,
have,
are you on the line? Malaya Wilson? All right, Mr. Aljagas.
I do have her comments in writing.
Perfect. If you read those into the minutes, please.
Sure. I'm aware that a timeline has been set for staff and student return to school year. However, we do not have the resources or the metrics that districts around us have. Those districts are not only using an app, they're also digitally scanning every student's temperature upon building entry. They're also testing every adult and child for COVID every 3 days or weekly, depending on the district. Many have separate staff for remote students. While our operations department assures us that our rooms and buildings are safe and that everything has been checked, our staff continues to ask the same questions and they fall on deaf ears. If you cannot answer simple safety questions from staff, you cannot open buildings safely, especially not in a district as large as ours. Our basement rooms do not have windows or AC, which means no ventilation. Our kids deserve more, deserve better. Our staff members with dire health conditions were denied accommodations despite 50% of our population electing to keep children home. Please put the health and safety of staff and students first. Staff should be able to leave during lunch and teach remotely from home for the afternoon versus staying if you do not open. No meals should be eaten from school. It's not safe. Send meals home. Safety and health should take priority over physical headcount for just a few short student days at the expense of many staff days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aljakis. Next name on the list.
Next this evening, we have Juliana Rodriguez.
Mr. Rodriguez, are you on the line? Also want to give time to make sure that they're not participating on the Spanish line. All right. Did you receive comments in writing, Mr. Aljakis?
I do not have comments in writing from Ms. Rodriguez.
All right. Cool. Next name on the list.
Next name this evening is Laurel Stone, and I do have comments in writing from Ms. Stone.
Laurel, are you on the line? All right, Ms. Aljakis, if you would read those comments into the minutes.
Thank you for your continued efforts to make decisions that are in the best interest of all stakeholders. As a community, Waukegan has continued to make decisions that keep everyone safe, and that is greatly appreciated. With that being said, I have a few concerns with the proposed high school hybrid schedule. First, there's a drastic change in student schedule and expectations for screen time. My fear is that students will not transition well to this increase in mandatory school hours with so few weeks left in the year. Teachers have worked tirelessly to provide consistency and develop routines with their students. This change disrupts all of our hard work. Students are used to the current expectations and should be allowed to finish their school year without this major change. If a hybrid schedule needs to be implemented, it should follow the schedule already established as much as possible. I do not believe it is in the best interest of the students to ask them to sit for longer periods of time on their computers in order to allow a few students back into the buildings. I am afraid that this change will result in a loss of engagement and lower participation. Also, I question the reasoning behind forcing teachers to remain in buildings when students are not present. As we have shown this past year, teachers are highly capable of working remotely from home while still providing students with quality instruction and support. If we are hoping to mitigate risk by asking students to limit their time in buildings, we should be asking the same of the staff. It is the safest approach and shows that all stakeholders are valued equally. There are a lot of questions regarding ventilation and appropriate safety measures, so limiting the hours students and staff are in buildings seems prudent. Lastly, what are the potential benefits to bringing students back to sit in classroom in person with their teachers approximately 6 total times? Students are not able to socialize or work collaboratively. Teachers are still expected to instruct those students learning remotely. Thus, nothing changes other than the physical location of a few students and the teacher. If these changes were implemented back in January, I would understand the potential rewards outweighing the risks. For a few short weeks that remain in this school year, however, it simply does not make sense. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Aljakis, next name on the list.
Next name this evening is Cheryl Jans, and Ms. Jans has also provided her comments in writing if she's not available.
Ms. Jans, are you on the line? All right, Ms. Aljakis, please read those comments into the record.
Hello to all the members of the school board, teachers, parents, and community members. First, I want to commend our district for putting the safety of students and staff and teachers before anything else. It makes me so proud to work for the school district. As I reflect on how we began remote learning a year ago, I am in awe of how well it is going. As a PE teacher of middle school students, especially diverse learners, we have worked so hard to establish a routine. Routine is something that is especially important for diverse learner students. The students participate in class daily and get excited to do whatever our activity is for the day. There's a phenomenal support network that has been created that includes paraprofessionals and parents. Everybody works together to make sure that they participate daily in class and have a positive experience. They have equipment to use at home. Bringing them back to school will change this routine. and create chaos within the classroom setting. Students will no longer be allowed to use the equipment that they have, which will upset them greatly. And because I draw students from multiple classes and have to go into the classroom, this will not be advantageous for any of the children. They will possibly have to remain in 3 different classrooms, and only one class would have the benefit of having me in person. I spent a lot of time thinking outside of the box to give them the best, and right now they have the best. Bringing them back in a hybrid format will change that in a negative way. At home, they are able to move around and have the space they need, as they are very mobile. This is something that they will not be able to do in school. I also believe that masks will be difficult for them to keep on. Please think of the needs of students and allow them to finish the year strongly and safely. My regular education students as well need the consistency that they have had, and changing that will not be the best for them either. I can't go in depth about that because there's not enough time. Sincerely, Ms. Jantz.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Alajakis, if you could read the next name on the list, please.
The next name on the list is Jody Kelly. I do have comments submitted from a Joan Kelly. I don't know the names and nicknames of all 2,300 of our staff members, so I do not know if Jody and Joan are the same individual.
Are they on the, can you repeat that name one more time?
Okay, I can confirm it is the same individual. So it's either Jody or Joan Kelly, a high school teacher at the Washington campus.
Mr. or Miss Kelly, are you on the line? All right, Ms. Alajakis, if you read those comments into the record.
Certainly. To the board, the superintendent, and the community, thank you for the opportunity to voice my opinion tonight. I teach seniors at the Washington campus as a member of the STEAM team, which is a group of teachers dedicated to motivating and guiding a specific group of at-risk students toward graduation. These students are credit deficient and often have been truant. We have approximately 140 students on this team, but tonight I want to tell you about my seniors, as these are the only students with whom I interact. When we started the year with remote learning, most of my students got jobs that aligned with their new schedules. The kids knew that they might have to quit their jobs when we went back to school, but well, we didn't go back to school until now. I hear that we are planning to have teachers return to school on March 29th and seniors to start on April 19th. As you know, the last day of school for seniors is May 12th. I am concerned that if my students are asked to quit their jobs to attend classes for 3 weeks, which now conflict with their established work schedules, doesn't that jeopardize their personal stability? Couldn't it disadvantage them because they will then need to compete for a new job with people re-entering the workforce? I am concerned that the benefits of a 3-week return to campus will be outweighed by the upheaval of the students' year-long routine. I can think of many issues that arise at the beginning of every school year, such as schedule adjustments, transportation needs, class dynamics, school expectations and protocols, just to name a few. And these issues get settled in the first few weeks. Not only is the location changing, but class times will change with hybrid schedule. When we only have a few weeks left of school, wouldn't we rather focus on effective learning than quelling chaos? I am concerned with simple things too, like parking. At Washington campus, there are more students driving to school than we can accommodate. I am concerned about the fact that we share our rooms with other teachers. Where do we go when we have a planning period? What will passing periods look like in order to comply with CDC guidance? I am concerned that there will be issues with entry into buildings due to temperature reporting software issues. The juniors have not been oriented to this building yet. There's so much more I could say, but for now I'm just asking you if indeed you have made the decision to open up the schools to reconsider. Please wait until summer school. As an aside, personally speaking, I'm receiving my second Moderna COVID-19 shot on Saturday, March 20th. I'll be a few days short of full strength immunity if teachers return on March 29th. Jody Kelly, 12th grade lit.
Thank you for those comments. Next name on the list, Mr. Alajakis.
Next name I have is Charlotte Fishman, and I believe I received those comments in writing just prior to the board meeting, so I'll pull those up. I do. I have it here. I don't know if Ms. Fishman's on the line, though. You may want to give her an opportunity.
Yes, Ms. Fishman, are you on the line? All right, Mr. Alajakis, if you read those comments into the record.
Good evening. I want to thank our superintendent and our board for making the safety of our staff and students their #1 priority this school year. I am a special education paraprofessional who is going to her 18th year in the district. I am a para within the low incidence program. With this year bringing on many challenges for our staff, students, and families, the students within the low incidence program at the high school have been amazing at adapting to the remote learning environment. At the beginning of the school year, there were accommodations made to help facilitate learning and stability within our classrooms. The staff and our parents have worked directly with each other daily to support them with the virtual learning platforms. Many parents have expressed how well they feel the school year has gone despite the challenges we have all faced. When looking at the potential hybrid plan, our program has many concerns. Asking our students and their parents to have to adapt to a new schedule this late in the year is asking a lot of them. Parents and teachers have worked tirelessly together to build schedules as well as built-in independent learning time with various staff. I believe our students will not adjust well to the change to hybrid learning schedule, and I feel we will lose a great deal of progress that we have made. Not only will this change in the schedule affect the students coming to the buildings, but students who choose to stay remote will need to learn the hybrid schedule in order to continue successfully. That means that parents will again need to adjust their current plans, which is not ideal for everyone involved. On top of all this change in the schedule, there are a number of additional concerns that our program has. Teachers, paraprofessionals, and students within the low incidence classrooms are at much higher risk if brought back to the school. Our staff works very closely with these students. We have students that have feeding tubes that need to be changed. Social distancing will be very difficult to accomplish while doing this. Our students have a difficult time portraying proper hygiene on a daily basis, which is why it is a constant goal yearly in our program. I truly feel that continuing remote for the remainder of the school year is truly the best logical decision for all when it comes to safety, health, and education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Aljakas. Next name on the list.
The next name this evening is Linda Asma.
One more time, what was the name?
The name was Linda Asma, A-S-M-A. Linda?
Linda, are you on the line?
I am.
All right, whenever you're ready, your time will start.
Well, let me just say the email that we are going back was not received in my inbox until the meeting had already started. So pretty much everything I had to say is moot right now, but I'm just going to reiterate what a lot of other teachers have said. You know, when you say the decision wasn't made lightly, safety first, you know, the board is saying that tonight. But let me just say that statistics and data shows what you choose to see. So basically, I'm scared. I don't want to go back. I had COVID at the start of the year. My white blood count is low. I can't get the vaccine till the end of March, which I've already signed up, hoping to get the Johnson & Johnson slot in the next upcoming vaccination session, but I don't have any guarantees. And I just want to say that there was a lot of learning loss, and that was across the nation. There was a lot of learning loss as far as how children were able to access information, how to get their assignments, learning how to turn things in, and so forth. But I don't think that reopening our schools in the spring is safe. And it's not just about epidemiology. It's about the existing momentum that we have created with remote learning. And I do believe in our near future, learning is going to be a blended learning mix of digital and face-to-face instruction. There's definitely going to be a place for that in schools in the near future. But by moving to remote learning, well, let's just say that we had to take stock in resources and resource deficits that used to be meaningful to integrate e-learning into our pursuit of remote learning. And this process has forced us, it's forced our curriculum, what's been learned, the instruction, and how it's being taught, the supporting resources such as Zoom and Google Classroom, And we've had to design and redesign to work together to make sure our students know how to do these things. Now, the process, I will admit, it's been slow, it's been clumsy, and it likely resulted in some learning loss, but are we in fact going back to a safe physical space? I don't believe that is going to exist for at least 4 months or longer. I'm trying to go through my notes because some of these have already been said. And I have to say, coming in late to the game, like I said, I've been rewriting my notes as I've gone through, but I just haven't been able to keep up. So I'm going to go down to a couple. Is my time?
Thank you. Yeah, I apologize. It is, but if you do provide it in writing, email the board, and I would like to read your comments. So thank you.
Well, I just want to say, if we're going to have breakfast in the classrooms, who's going to mop the floors? And is this a trial run for the fall? If not, why can't they be done in summer school? That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackus, next name on the list, please.
Next name on the list is Tanya Evans, and Ms. Evans did email saying she would not be available this evening and would like her comments read into the record.
All right, whenever you're ready.
To the Board of Education, thank you for being one of the few districts in Illinois that has prioritized the health and safety of students, staff, and families, and the community. You have maintained your promise to keep us safe in these unprecedented times. As a parent to an immunocompromised 2-year-old, I couldn't be more proud to continue serving Waukegan while they also keep my son safe at home. Remote learning has been a blessing to my family and to my students' families. We can learn best when we are in an environment that is safe. As we look to the future of hybrid learning, I do wish to share my concern regarding the middle school procedures, specifically regarding students eating breakfast in the classroom with teachers. This act goes against safety measures recommended by the CDC and goes against everything that we have claimed about sending students back safely. In addition, as much as I love my middle school students, I know they inherently look for loopholes in the rules, so allowing them time to take off their mask in a building, even if it's just to eat or drink, could potentially cause further problems with students keeping their masks on at all times during the day for the safety of everyone. I'd like to propose a solution. Students participating in in-person hybrid learning would receive their bagged lunches and breakfast for the next day at the same time, after school. It would solve the safety issue for students eating within the classroom while still providing them with a meal for a later date. It would also be clear to students that masks should be worn at all times, on the bus and within the building, so there would be no confusion or opportunities for misunderstanding. As an advocate for my students' health and well-being, I just wanted to offer a safer alternative to this issue, and I hope you take this into consideration as we inch closer to a hybrid model. Thank you for all that you do in keeping the Waukegan community safe.
Thank you, Mr. Jackus. The next name on the list?
The next name this evening is Donald Shipman, S-I-H-P-M-A-N.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, so whenever you're ready, your time will start.
All right. I would like to thank the school board for giving me the opportunity to speak my thoughts on the pressing issue of reopening the schools in our district. I also wish to commend the school board, our superintendent, and all those who have been working up until now to keep Waukegan students and staff safe during these trying times. I am a paraprofessional at the Brookside campus of Waukegan High Schools, where I work with the low incidence team in assisting our students who need the most care and attention. My concerns with reopening the schools come from the perspective of health and from a perspective of student routine. While I and many of other staff are vaccinated against COVID-19, and I'm sure many more will get their vaccines through the programs that the district has set up for us, this does not mitigate all the risks to our staffs and our students. Individuals who got vaccinated can still be infected by COVID-19 and still spread COVID-19. This is harmful to our staff who live with immunocompromised individuals and may spread COVID-19 to them. Being forced to return increases the likelihood of individuals in this situation spreading the virus to loved ones and those loved ones dying. In addition to this, our students who are not vaccinated can infect and then spread this virus. This is harmful in two main ways. As a member of the low incidence team, several students are health sensitive and the ramifications of the virus on this population may be deadly. We also do not know what the long-term effects of COVID could be on children. Many who have been infected are showing signs of prolonged illness and recovery when recovering from the virus, including organ failure. In addition to this, students who become infected can infect others, their parents, grandparents, and other relatives which they may live with. As we have seen with other schools which have already opened, such as New Trier and the CPS system, infections in schools are all too common, even with strict mitigation procedures in place. We would be putting these multi-generational households at risk by reopening. Finally, our students, both in the general population and in the low incidence program, have been participating in online learning schedule for the entirety of this year. There are set routines and practices in place which teachers and support staff have cultivated and worked into a functional daily workload for our students. Changing this now, mere months prior to the end of the school year, would make the process of getting students accommodated back to school life conflict with the expectations of the work that has been set. This would lower the quality of what they do, and by the time they became used to the new system and regain the quality of work, which is now being completed, the year would be over or close to over. This may have an adverse effect on the turn-in rates of assignments, attendance rates, and potentially test scores, which I know we are all worried about. I hope the board will reconsider opening schools for the safety of the students and the staff. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Alajakis, next name on the list, please.
The next name this evening is Ashley Altames, I believe. Now, Ashley did email stating she would not be able to attend, and I do have comments from her.
Please read those into the record.
Although there's not an official return date, I hope the district takes into consideration a 2-week incubation period after spring break. This incubation period was in the district's plans after winter break, and I feel this should stand for spring break as well. I know there are other components that are a factor to return to in-person learning, but I also hope the district considers how important routine, structure, and consistency are to learning. My fear is that with a possible return to in-person learning, the students will be pulled from their consistent routines with less than 2 months of the school year.
Did that conclude the comments, Mr. Alajakis?
Yes, I'm sorry, that concludes her comments.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Alajakis, next name on the list, please.
The next name this evening is from Kate Biggerstaff.
Can you spell the last name, please? And if you are on the line, please make yourself known.
It's Kate Biggerstaff, Biggerstaff. I do have comments that were submitted in writing by Mary, who also goes by Kate Biggerstaff. So if she's not available, I can read those.
All right, Mr. Alajakis. Yes, please read those.
As a school nurse, I strongly feel that reopening schools should be delayed until enough time has passed to allow us to determine how spring break will affect local COVID spread. Many students have reported that they will be traveling for break, and we have no quarantine requirement for travel. People point to the low numbers of child deaths, but I firmly believe that not a single Waukegan student is an acceptable sacrifice to reopen schools. We have remote learning in place, and taking children into and inevitably out of an environment that puts them at risk is unacceptable. Please keep our children and staff as safe as they can be in a pandemic that takes no prisoners and that often doesn't fully show itself and is one of the true, it fully doesn't show itself and its true effects for weeks. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Alajakis. Thank you for reading those comments into the record. Next name on the list, please.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Next name on the list is Lori Heibeck.
Ms. Heibeck, are you on the line? Lori Heibeck, are you on the line? All right, go ahead, Mr. Alajakis.
I do not have written comments for Ms. Heibeck. The next name is Tim Smith, and I do have a brief written comment from Timothy Smith if he's not available.
All right, Ms. Smith, are you on the line? Tim Smith? All right, go ahead, Ms. Jackson, to read those comments into the minutes.
Families in our community continue to fear being infected by COVID-19 because they have not been vaccinated yet. I agree with the science and the CDC about transmission and prevention. The new variant is present in Chicago and said to be more contagious. Why not wait until students can be vaccinated? If there is a fourth surge, as predicted, we will all go back to remote again anyhow. Tim Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Aljakas. Next name on the list.
Next thing we have on the list is Ms. Lynette Oliver. I do have a written statement from Ms. Oliver, so if she's not on the line, I'd be happy to read it into the record.
Ms. Oliver, are you on the line? Would you like to speak your comments? All right, Ms. Aljakas, please read those into the minutes.
I am sure you have heard a variety of concerns from parents, staff, and even students about going back as well as remaining virtual. I have already sent a letter to all the board members as well as Ms. Placencia sharing my concerns, but I did want to bring up my biggest concern to be shared at the meeting this evening. My biggest concern is the time spent actively learning. I am an ELL teacher for our district. During virtual, I have been able to fulfill my minutes for my students, and they are doing amazing. I'm so proud of how these children have adapted to a new way of learning and have really stepped up to the plate. Students are in a routine now and are engaged. With the proposed hybrid plan, I really feel as though we will lose many students. The routines will be broken, some will be virtual, some will be in person, but none of them will get the full attention of a teacher as they are now. This is going to stop the great progress we have been making because the connections will be lost. When you factor in 30 minutes of student check-in time, we'll be working with students for 3.5 hours, and that doesn't even include time to get ready for going home. So more likely, a little over 3 hours. I know for a fact our students, I am at Clark, get more time than that each day in our current schedule. As with the hybrid plan, you would be bringing, also with the hybrid plan, you will be bringing some students back in late April. We end school in late May, so is it worth the disruption to an established routine for 1 month? We also haven't heard what hybrid will look like for staff that provide pullout support, IST, ELL, DL services, even though we've asked many times. I want to check back with my students in person, but not when I can't give them the time that they deserve. These students need as much support as possible, and although there has been a lot of time put into the hybrid plan, the plan does not allow for proper support for many students. Thank you for your time. Lynette Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Aljakas.
The next name this evening, it simply states anonymous faculty member. I'll defer to you, board president, or legal counsel on that.
Yeah, I think we need a name. Address is optional, for the record. So if we want to send that anonymous comment to the board so that they have it, but I will defer to legal. Ms. Vanderbroek or Mr. Morris.
I think the rules of the PAC has put out would be that the individual would be named. They don't have to give their address, but a name should be minimal. We don't normally credit anonymous reports or give them much weight. So my view is we could skip it.
All right, if they provided it in writing, Mr. Aljakas, if you can email it to the board, but I will not have it read into the record.
Okay. Then the final name this evening is Jonathan H. And I do not have anything in writing from Jonathan H.
Jonathan H., are you on the line? Jonathan H. Jonathan, same thing. Please email me bewing, EWING at WPS60.org, or make yourself known in the chat. Are there any other comments? And that was the final name, right, Ms. Alajakis?
That is correct.
Yeah, just two things I want to address. And same as it's not a back and forth, but just for clarity. First item in reference to why I'm running, this is not a political campaign, so I won't do it here. But if taxpayers want to hear why I'm running, I've been very vocal about why I chose to rerun. You can find me on social media, look for my information in the public. And the second item is I really want to say thank you for all of those individuals who spoke up. I think you raised valid questions or concerns, and I always tell people is that we have taken, and I can't speak for the administration, superintendent and our team have really been dealing with this, but there is no good answer, right? And I think we are taking the information, we're listening to the information, we're tweaking the plan as we receive information. We are not just trusting that everything is done. I know Mr. Riddle, I don't know if you want to speak to it, but we walk buildings, we're checking, windows, we're looking at things like hot water. And so superintendent, I know this might not be on there, but if there are some questions that we can answer, that came into the chat specific to water, specific to hot water, specific to ventilation, can we address that? Will we address that during the superintendent time? I feel like there's a lot of anxiety, and one of the things we can do is try to answer the questions as best we can. I know there's some items like food in the classroom and other things that we will not bargain in public, right? So those conversations are ongoing. But for the things that we can, respond to, can we do so?
Yeah, so we have presented on ventilation a few times, even at our last student achievement meeting. Mr. Moulton, I'm going to ask that you respond to the questions on ventilation in the comment section, please. And I do see that our staff has been answering questions on the pre-K question that came through. I think Krisha Razul responded to that. I also looked into the special ed parking lot question, and I do have proof that those questions have been answered. And if I can get an email, I will send that to whoever put that comment in. And so you can see that those questions were addressed, I believe, within, I had the amount of days that they were addressed, but if you missed that, we can get that to you also. So if my staff can look at the comment questions and get those answers, or put some of those answers in the chat box, please.
Thank you.
And Dr. B, if you can put the parking lot questions, if there's a link where the staff that wanted to go back and look at those answers to those questions, if you can do that in the chat, that'd be great. I don't know if that's possible, but if not, whoever made that question, if you'll email me, I'll forward you those responses, or you can even email Dr. Bublitz.
All right. Yeah, thank you for those public comments. As I said, the information was announced, the decision was the date set, and I think the community is dealing with it. As I keep mentioning, there will be additional opportunities for questions and Q&A sessions in the coming week.
And Board President, can I also state that there will be opportunities for dialogue and questions to be answered, whether that's through Facebook Live events. You'll be seeing communication come out where the staff can come in and our team will be available for questions. Totally understand the apprehension and your concerns. I do want to reiterate, though, I don't know if there'll ever be a good time to say we're coming back, but based off the information, CDC guidelines, what we're seeing through the state of Illinois, and just reiterating, we are one of the few districts coming back into hybrid. Majority, I believe it's over 80% of our districts have already returned in the state of Illinois in some type of format. So please know that this decision was not made lightly. We are going to be flexible. We're going to keep watching the numbers. I'm walking through schools. Your principals have checklists on what they're to look for. And we're going to ensure that safety is our top priority, and that we're doing everything we can to ensure the safety of all stakeholders in District 60.
All right. If we would continue on to consent agenda, the Greenwood furniture purchase. Consent agenda, there's only one item on there. You know, the consent agenda is done. Usually we take multiple items at one time and vote on it so that it expedites the meeting. As I said, there is only one item. Any board member can request that any item be held over. This is a pretty straightforward purchase that was previously discussed, but are there any questions, concerns related to this item? Roll call vote, please. I'm sorry, do we have a motion?
Mr. Riddle here, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda item A for the purchase of furniture for Glenwood School.
Second, Leguizamo.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Callahan-Wozniak?
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
Mr. Castellanos? Yes. Mr. Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We are at lesson study in math. Superintendent?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hit my camera off instead of mic on. Sorry. It is the recommendation of the administration that the board authorizes the superintendent to agree to the contractual agreement of having 9 buildings complete the teaching for problem-solving cohort with Dr. Takahashi for a total of 9 separate contracts of $3,000 to $5,000 into one consolidated contract of $44,300. The time period will be 2 hours weekly for 10 weeks. 20 hours total.
Mr. President, I make a motion, we approve this item as presented by the superintendent.
Second, Wozniak.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Wozniak. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Callahan-Wozniak?
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries.
Board President,
Yes.
just really quick, this is Leguizamo. Just wanted to make mention that I sent in a few clarifying questions. It was not going to sway my vote, so I just wanted to understand the full program at its length. So if the team can please send that out to the board after this meeting, that'd be great.
Mr. Alajakis, please ensure that we get that to the board.
All right. We are now going to go to personnel items. So we got 11A, approval of the resolution for participation in the teacher's retirement system. Sorry, I don't know. Did you guys hear anything I said? Approval of the resolution, item 11A, approval of the resolution of participation in the teacher's retirement. Seem to be on a delay. Mr. Riddle, if you will proceed with the meeting, I will try and connect by another device.
Can anybody hear me? Yeah.
Jeremy, read the motion. Read the motion.
Sure if everybody has muted their mics.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, Mike.
Those those beeps are occurring as people are exiting the chat or the meeting. That's why that's happening there.
Well, that's what it is. I still see 176 in the meeting though. It doesn't look like it's going way down. 177.
I still 32. I make a motion to approve the
You make a motion to approve 11A.
11A.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Callahan-Wozniak and a second by Ms. Leguizamo. Is that correct? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak,
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo,
Yes.
Mr. Castellanos,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing.
Mr. Ewing?
I think he got.
I think he's out right now. Okay. Okay, motion approved. Now we're at the 11B, amendment to number 9 to the superintendent's contract. Can you read that, Superintendent?
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve and authorize the board president to execute amendment number 9 to the superintendent's employment agreement.
So moved, Wozniak.
Okay, Ms. Wozniak moved it. Do I have a second, please?
Second, Leguizamo.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Leguizamo. Any discussion on that motion? Otherwise, roll call vote, please.
I have a comment, please.
Yes, Ms. Hannah, go right ahead.
Okay, I am just stating that I cannot support the amendment to the superintendent's contract because of my scores that she received from me.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Any further comments on the motion to approve item 11B? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
No.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak,
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo,
Yes.
Mr. Castellanos,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing.
Yes. Item approved, motion carries.
Mr. President, go ahead and carry on.
We're on personnel C.
If everyone can hear me, I will continue. Item 11C, personnel for 3/9/2021.
It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the administration's recommendation to approve the appointments, accept the retirements and resignations as found on schedules F953, L900, G611.
Mr. Riddle, I make a motion, we approve this item 11C as presented by the superintendent.
Second, Leguizamo.
Any comments, questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan Wozniak,
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo,
Yes.
Mr. Castellanos,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We have a new administrative appointment, so I believe there's a slide.
At this time, we'd like to welcome Ms. Angela Ramirez, who will now serve as our parent manager. She previously served as a previously served as a bilingual parent facilitator. She will now serve as the district parent manager with a starting salary of $46,000. Welcome, Mrs. Ramirez.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. And then we do have an administrator who is moving into a permanent role. So she's been interim principal over at AOEC. It was actually a finalist for the Golden Apple Award and will be coming on permanently, and that is Ms. Carter. So we thank you, Ms. Flora Carter, for your many years here with District 60 and the way that you have embraced your new role over at AOEC. Which is near and dear to my heart. So thank you for your work, and congratulations to all for joining the District 60 family.
President Ewing, and if I'm not mistaken, I also believe that Mrs. Carter is an alumni. Am I correct, Mrs. Carter?
Yes, I didn't graduate from Waukegan due to family circumstances, but I did attend Waukegan Public Schools. Glen Flora.
Thank you. All right, and we are going down to ratification reports. Ratification of the first processing of board bills, March 2021 manual check request payments and First Midwest insurance payments for the period of February 17, 2021 through March 2nd, 2021.
It is recommended that the Board of Education ratify the first March 2021 processing of board bills, manual check request payments, and First Midwest insurance payments for the period of February 17, 2021 through March 2nd, 2021. The accounts payable board, February 17, 2021 through March 2nd, 2021, payments total $947,501.36. The manual check request payments for the period of February 17, 2021 through March 2nd, 2021 total $815,565. The First Midwest insurance payments for the period of February 17, 2021 through March 2nd, 2021, payments total $2,174,609.38.
Mr. Riddle, I so move that we accept the motion as read.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second, Wozniak.
Second by Ms. Wozniak. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak? Yes. Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes. Item approved, motion carries. All right. I'm going to allow for ask that we stand in recess for a 5-minute break. I know the board has been meeting since 6 p.m. So please take 5 minutes in order to grab some water, use the restroom, all of that fun stuff. And we will resume in 5 minutes. If I have a roll call, I guess, Mr. Morris, do I need a vote? I think you're on mute, Mr. Morris.
Recess, you mean?
Yes.
No, okay, just do a quick roll call. I don't think it's needed. It's easier to do than answer the question.
Gotcha. So roll call in order to stand in recess, and we'll resume in 5 minutes.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak? Yes. Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Castellanos?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes, the board is in recess. We will resume in 5 minutes. Community, stay with us. You guys have the same opportunity to stretch your legs, and we will be back. I would encourage you to reach out to your board members and express your concerns. But yes, we are back. I did get 5 minutes. I'm going to allow people to come back into the room, those who want to rejoin, as well as the Board of Education. We were in recess, so I like a motion to go back into open session.
I make a motion that we go out of recess and resume our meeting.
We have a motion to go into open session. Motion by Mr. Riddle, motion by Ms. Sanders, second by Mr. Riddle. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak,
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo,
Yes.
Mr. Castellanos,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing.
Yes. All right. We are back in open session. We are reports and presentations. Committee reports. Are there any? Don't see any. Student board member report. Mr. Lasani.
Hello, good evening, everyone, Mr. Board President and board members. So I do have, I guess, a couple of things to talk about, questions from fellow peers of mine, and also just kind of a couple of updates or, kind of going on with those questions. So specifically, first, the social media page that I did talk about, thank you to Mr. Aljakis. He created, and then also I think it's Mr. Riportella. He also helped with that Facebook and Instagram page, and then also an email that will be, I guess, fully functional soon. Hopefully, I just have to kind of figure it out and manage a way to fully launch it first, and then kind of get that started. And hopefully, I'll have more things to talk about and different things that we can change for sure. Some questions that I have that have been brought up to my attention. One question is, I'm kind of just gonna say this all at once. But if anybody would like me to repeat it, the superintendent, Ms. Placencia, or any of the board members. So one question is that, will there be finals this semester, or is that still being talked about? Will that be decided soon, or what is the decision on that? Especially if hybrid learning is going into place, how will that look like? Especially for seniors as well. Seniors will be graduating early, and will there be senior finals? Will there be finals in general for all high school students? And then another question is that, when is the confirmed date of school ending for seniors and also the rest of the school district? So from my calendar that I have looked at, it does say May 27th, but I just wanted to confirm that as well. And then I have also heard about rumors about graduation, but I guess I just want to confirm that with the board or the superintendent of what the plan is and what the goal is. Because I know seniors are hopefully expecting one, or they would like one. And I think that during all this pandemic, I think that having a graduation would be seriously an amazing thing and a happy thing, not only for the students, but also for the parents. And I think it'll just be something good out of this whole school year. And then next I have the student asked me the change in schedule if hybrid does happen for sure. What is it? What is the plan for that? What are the details in regards to that? Will our student schedules being changed? Will they have different teachers, different periods, same teachers? How is that going to work for hybrid learning? And then another question is specifically for SAT testing, which is next month, and as a junior, I am also going to be taking that. So there's a question for me and my fellow juniors as well, specifically. Will how will that work? Will it be similar to the seniors that took their test back in October and November, the guidelines that everyone followed, having it in different schools and different classrooms? You know, how will that look like? And also if PSAT will be given or not to freshmen and sophomores, and I think 8th graders as well, if I'm not mistaken. So that is another question. And then I think the last question I may have is AP test. So I know there was a form sent out in regards to the students' preferences, if they would like it online, if they would go in person to take it. So if there's any update regarding that, or if any decision has been made or decision being finalized about AP tests, if that will also be done in person, and will the same procedures be followed as the SAT test if it was to be in person? So those are the questions that I have. I know those are kind of a lot, and if anybody would like me to repeat them, I can. And then I guess kind of reiterating a little bit back in the meeting where Ms. Logozamo, she talked about having Waukegan history not only as an elective for high school students, which I think is only for juniors and seniors, but also just being a part of the, you know, curriculum in general for elementary schools kids and also middle school kids, you know, kind of, you know, it will give them an idea of what Waukegan has been through, the past, the leaders, you know, even if it isn't a full-on class, you know, just even a lesson or two or something embedded in the history curriculum for elementary and middle school students. I think that I think that'd be really awesome and really cool. And then, you know, if students are, I think that will get students more interested in having to take or wanting to take the elective Waukegan history, you know, elective. So I think that would be really awesome. You know, they're going to be like, oh, I want to find out more. So that's about it. I know that's kind of a lot, I think. But if there's any questions or comments, yeah, that was my report. Thank you.
Great comments. Great comments.
Thank you, Ms. Hanna.
I'm gonna have Mr. Alajaka circle back with you and get a list of all the questions you answered, so we can get responses to that and we can get them to the student body. I do want you to know that a letter did go out and we are committed to a graduation. What that will look like, it may be, you know, A through G, you know, we're going to have the social distance, but we will be having an in-person graduation this year. We are committed to it.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Placencia.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. Same thing to Mr. Desani, is if you, like with the current board, if there are questions, anything like that, we want you to say them publicly during board member time, but also so that the staff can actually respond when you ask the questions. Feel comfortable and free to email the superintendent and make sure you CC me as a non-voting member of the board. I want to make sure that you have that same opportunity, right? And it also allows the administration to be able to prepare, so that if you have questions, things that they know in advance, they can speak to them and get those answers during the meeting. So this is the learning, you know, process, like, because I hadn't told you that. So I definitely want you to feel comfortable emailing me and the superintendent when you have questions or concerns. And then thank you for your report and for those questions, because they're valid ones. And also congratulations on starting your project, right? That was one of the things that you talked about when you interviewed with the board. You stuck to it, and within 30 days, you have it up and running. So thank you for that initiative and for continuing to be a voice and an advocate for our student body. Delegates report, Ms. Hanna.
Yes, Mr. President, just a couple things. The first one is that there's going to be an informational webinar for school board candidates, March 18th. March 18th at 6:30. p.m. and there's no registration required. And you can just go to the www.iasb.com/livestream/again. That's for all the board, school board candidates. And also there's going to be another webinar for welcoming the first 100 days, welcoming your board members to the team. That's going to happen on March 11th at 1 p.m. And you do have to register for that one. Also, we will have our Lakes Division meeting. It's going to be virtual. It's going to be tomorrow, March 10th. And the Zoom meeting begins at 6:30, but you can join at 6:20 p.m. And everyone should have received the notice and the link for tomorrow's meeting. And hopefully everyone attends, the board members attend, because that would give us points for the governance recognition later into the year. I think that's it. Oh, and one other thing, very important. Hopefully everyone has received the economic interest statements, and that you all have sent them back, or they have to be back by May 15th, or you will get a $15 penalty. And it may be for $15 for every day that you don't do it, but just do it. It's a couple questions. However, those of us that filed them for the upcoming election, I am going to be inquiring to the clerk's office to see if we have to do it again. And I will let Mr. Ewing know, and he can send out a text if that is the case. But that's it. Yeah, that's it at this time for delegates report.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah, for staying on top of it and being a delegate and making sure you pass along that information. We appreciate your information. Superintendent's report.
President Ewing, we did that during presentation.
Thank you. So during President's report, I spoke a lot, and so I do want to reiterate, and even publicly and with the superintendent, is I always state is we want to create more forums and appropriate forums for staff to get their questions answered, and along with the community to get information. So as we plan, if we can please plan, separate events for staff so that they can get into the nuts and bolts around some of the concerns that they still have and remain, and questions that they feel are still outstanding. I do, as I mentioned earlier, the board did have the opportunity to tour the buildings in the schools. There are things that are still happening. I want to highlight just the work of our maintenance team, who've been working tirelessly. When I was in the buildings, they were painting, they've been doing upgrades to electrical, they've been installing desks, they were mopping. There was a system by which there was a sign on the door, and they tested the water, and they checked if it was working, if it wasn't working, if there were repairs that needed to be made, and that was on the door. And so those things are happening for whenever our students do return, right? And so I do want to acknowledge that, and acknowledge those who have been plugging away, in the buildings, and same as I think teachers will appreciate. I don't know Mr. Alajakis or superintendent, but at some of the schools that are set up, if we can even provide pictures as to what they look like, so the teachers have a better visual understanding of how desks and chairs have already been removed, and things like that. So I do appreciate the work that's been done, and I do recognize and understand the concerns that staff still has. I also want to address one other thing is typically I consider myself as a board president to be pretty responsive to individuals who reach out in real time. So if there's ever a time where I miss an email or don't return a phone call, if you have my number, if you have my email address, you can always shoot me a message, a text, a phone call, any of that. And so I appreciate those who reach out, and I will remain responsive. So thank you for that. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, because it wasn't, I don't know if it was elaborated, but there wasn't a change to the superintendent's contract. By contract, we have to provide an evaluation by March 1st. So the board did meet and do the evaluation, and what we are doing is we just submitted the evaluation to the superintendent's contract, right, to show what the evaluation results were. So that is what it was. It was a common practice. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention, and I might do it during board member time because I believe that I forgot it, but thank you for all of those who attended. We are at information items. So there are two items that have been submitted for information. These are resolutions. There are attachments due to time for 9:33. I'm going to ask the Board of Education, really, it's 9:30. It's 9:30, so I want to, are there any questions on those information items?
Mr. President, did we get the addendum to the parent-student handbook so that we can look at it before we, I'm sure that we're going to be asked to approve it, but if we could get the items so that we could see them, and would they be in the attachment, the changes and so forth?
Yes,
are
ma'am.
They're in the attachments?
Yeah, so the attachments that are here, the recommendations that are put forth are there as information items, and the attachments are available to both the board and the public.
Okay, I will look, as long as we're not voting on them today.
No, ma'am, we're not. This is the Handbook 2020 Addendum, COVID Health and Safety is first reading.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. And that's important. So thank you to the PTAC and the individuals for the recommendations. Same. Old business, is there any old business?
Would the conversation that you and I spoke about earlier today regarding the I don't know what they're called, the trifos, would that be under old business? Yeah, it would be. It would be. Let me tell you why. Because we already purchased them, and it is old business. So let me just say, I was not satisfied with the quality of the trifles that we purchased all of that money for. They are simply corrugated cardboard with very flexible plastic. I'm not talking about anything regarding the installation, because the maintenance people, they did an excellent job in installing them on the desk. However, I believe they are very insufficient. And if a student felt like they wanted to jab a pencil into them, they're going to be useless. And I just wish that we would maybe have took a little bit more time in purchasing something that would be more durable for our students. I know I heard one comment regarding the air and so forth, and those things are not going to stop any kind of air, or if someone did have a virus, it's going to go right over those things because they're totally insufficient. And I think that purchase of those trifles, I think we could have did better. Okay. And so I certainly hope that they are not the same things that we are going to be putting at the high school. I thought we were purchasing plexiglass to go on the desk, but they are not. And I am totally dissatisfied with what we purchased. And that's unfortunate.
Mr. Molden, can you please address, first, you can speak to the quality of what was purchased, but also there was a question about, are we using the same ones at the elementary, middle, and high school?
Yes, thank you, Board President. Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, and community. So, Ms. Hannah, we did purchase corrugated plastic for our elementary grade level students on their desk. The middle school and high school desktop dividers are acrylic, much heavier materials, as well as the dividers we got for the health stations and the teacher and other staff member desk. What we currently have set up, they do have a film protector on them that we've asked the custodial staff to leave on until we physically bring students back, so we can peel those off and not have to clean them multiple times in preparations for students. And we also have feet on them. We have not put the adhesive on the feet to stick them to the desk. We've put them in place where they're going to go, because we want to ensure those things happen right before student arrival. But to answer your question specifically, yes, the middle school and high school students are receiving a different material. They're going to be heavier duty acrylic dividers for their desk.
And so the trifles that are currently installed on the desk, okay, I kind of poked it, and all it is plastic. So are you saying that plastic comes off and it's plexiglass?
We have corrugated plastic at our elementary level, and we're going to stick the feet, the split suction cup type feet onto the desk for stability. The film I'm referring to is a protective film so that it doesn't get damaged while it's not in use. We do have adequate spares in inventory, so that if they do get damaged for any reason at all, or just get worn over time, we can replace them without having to wait a lead time for another order. But again, those are for the younger age students, and we do have the acrylic for the middle school and high school that will withstand the abuse over time that they may receive.
All right, yeah, I understand, and thank you for saying that. But I think as I was telling the board president, when they are showing different elementary schools in different districts, their elementary has the plexiglass. And I don't know what was the rationale for not getting the plexiglass for even our younger students. And I don't know. And I guess I'm going to have to go back and look to see what was the cost of that purchase, because I think I'm going to stick with what I said. I think we could have did a little bit better quality for our students in elementary.
Miss Hannah, this is Miss Leguizamo. So remember, I mean, I was the one that spoke out about this, right? I was the only no vote on this topic here. And it was presented to us as corrugated and acrylic barriers. It is dated December 8th of 2020. If you wanted to take a look at that on the agenda, it's $500,000.
Yeah,
and
too much for what is being installed at our elementary school.
Right, but that's what was presented to us, right, as boards. So, I know I was the only no vote on that one, but it's exactly what it was intended to do. It's a trifold on the desk that, it's, to me, I feel that it is a placebo effect. I think masks are more appropriate when it comes to that. But yeah, those are the items that was approved.
Well, I didn't, and I guess that went past me. And thank you for saying no to that, because you were right. Okay, because they are not the quality that I thought they were going to be.
And just for clarity, I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but Mr. Riddle, you toured the schools. I don't know who else toured the schools.
Mine's tomorrow.
You want me to comment, Board President, on what I saw?
If you would like to.
Well, I'll comment a little bit. I mean, I toured 4 buildings, and one of them being the high school, and I did see plexiglass even in the grade school. The teachers had the heavier plexiglass, but in the elementary, as you're talking about, the children had the just the trifolds that are a much cheaper plastic, but they are much smaller children. I saw a lot of work being done. I tested windows to make sure they opened. I looked at ventilator systems, because we all know that airborne viruses can best be dispelled by opening the windows or the ventilators. The ventilators are being run 24/7. I was told by maintenance, that there's constant. I mean, we have them open as much as they will allow fresh air coming in, and still heating or cooling it. Many of our classrooms, if not most of them now, have air conditioning, and I asked that question, can they also put on the air conditioners? And they said, yes, they can also put on the air conditioners in the classroom just for fan, to bring the fresh air in as well. So I was impressed. I mean, we're doing the best we can with the buildings that we have. I saw everything looked as clean as it could be. They had the disinfectants by all the classrooms. Inside, there was also a disinfectant kit. They also had the lines on the floors, and the signage and the arrows, and then into the bathrooms. I went into many of the bathrooms to make sure that they had spacing and numbers of how many children could be in a bathroom at one time. And so we're doing as much as we can with our buildings to mitigate the risk. So I felt pretty comfortable with what I saw. I was encouraged by the staff that were there, including, as you said, custodians who were showing me, very happy to show me how they had cleaned certain areas, how they had put cardboard over certain sinks that couldn't be used and locked off handles on water fountains and stuff, so that the children could be as safe as they could be. So in the situation that we have. So I was impressed with what I saw, Mr. Ewing and board members.
So, yeah, Ms. Hannah, your point is noted. Ms. Leguizamo as well, your point was noted. And same. It keeps coming up with the hot water question. I think that Mr. Moulton has responded to that. And what I saw today is there was a system in place for testing. So on the door, they marked, is it working, is it not working? And Jack Benny specifically, right, they had upgraded the hot water, and I'm not, trust me, anything breaks in my house, I got to call somebody to fix. So I have banker's hands, as my father, often tells me. But, we walked into it, they showed me the boiler, they showed me what improvements have been made. And so based on that, it has been stated a few times at the board, and from what we saw and what was tested, there is hot water at each of the buildings and each of the bathrooms. And in addition to hot water, there's also, as Mr. Riddle pointed, a hand sanitation station outside of each classroom at every door entrance. And so those are things that have been done. And to Ms. Leguizamo's point, but for some, if you talk about Webster and Benny, Ms. Hannah, I know you brought those up with the windows. There were major concerns about those. So like Mr. Riddle said, we tested to see if those windows opened. And then in addition, there were, and I don't know, I don't want to put him on the spot, but Mr. Kruckenberg, what are the units that you were showing me, or Mr. Moulton?
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Ewing. I believe you were asking me about the unit ventilators that have been added at every classroom at Webster and at Jack Benny over the last 8 months. Every classroom in those two buildings has a brand new heating and air conditioning system that is centered around bringing in fresh air. It's computer controlled and online, ready to go. Does that answer your question?
It does. I couldn't think, I told you I wasn't gonna remember the name when you showed them to me, but I thought they were the old radiators. No, we've replaced them. And I thought, especially at those two schools where there were major concerns, even to those individuals that are in the basement, right? That they had those unit ventilators in each of the rooms, right? And so and as I mentioned, those rooms are also, the teacher has a thermostat that they control in the classroom, right? So it's not anymore, as they said, is yes, we want to be energy efficient, but right now, health and safety is our number one priority. So if windows are open, if we're not, energy efficient, it's because we are trying to improve airflow as much as possible in order to reduce, COVID. And so as Ms. Leguizamo mentioned, wear the masks. The plexiglass is another line of defense. And then we have the windows and the increased air quality. And when we say energy efficient, teachers did not have the ability to control what was in there. So there have been energy efficiencies that were added over the years which save money. So like upgrades and controlling thermostats and temperatures and during times of the day, those things have been retweaked and reworked in order to improve maximum airflow for each of the buildings.
And that includes Jefferson as well, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, Ms. Anna, I didn't get your question.
I'm sorry, is that at Jefferson? Is that at all the middle schools?
It's not. Mr. Kruckenberg mentioned the two schools that is at, the buildings that the other middle schools, elementary schools, that if they don't have a, like Abbott got the AC upgrade. So if you're talking about, for example, when I was at Washington campus, those buildings have the AC window units, right? And then the windows open.
So are there plans? I hear Mr. Kruckenberg. Are there plans to do the upgrade and ventilation and air purifying at Jefferson as well?
So it's not air purification. That's why I want to be clear. And so the question should be addressed to Mr. Bolden. What I was talking about is what I saw, and specifically at those two buildings where there were concerns raised about the windows. These aren't air purification systems. They're unit ventilators. And I do believe Mr. Bolden spoke to the board and also at a previous meeting about, air purifiers and how they, similar to what Ms. Leguizamo said, is the cost didn't actually lead to improved air quality when you tested that against what could be done to upgrade our current HVAC systems. So, Mr. Molden, is anything that I've stated inaccurate?
No, Mr. President, you haven't. You've stated everything accurately. However, I would like to add, some additional sites and locations because we have. We have been working on this for some time. We mentioned Mr. Kruckenberg did and yourself, Benny and Webster, but also Abbott, Clearview, Lyon, Glen Flora have the same systems, and as well as the window replacements at several of our schools, including Little Fort, Glenwood, Oakdale, Jack Benny, and Webster, and some repairs and replacement of smaller sections of buildings where we've experienced windows that may be inoperable, or classrooms that don't have window areas, but they do have air handler and ventilation systems that feed to those spaces, ensuring that those items are operable. And in some locations that were never designed to be occupied, they may have been designed as a storage unit that were used for occupancy purposes in the past. We've asked that those and told those do not be used during this time because that's not their intended purpose. We appreciate you all coming out. Mr. Kruckenberg and his team have worked diligently on this, all the custodians and building staff, and we're being responsive in reviewing all of these items in real time and continuously doing so. We know that situations are going to still warrant our maintenance staff to make repairs and replacements. And that is obviously a critical need and a priority as we move forward in this, as it has been in the past, to ensure all of our systems are operational. And I did see something about filter changes. We do change filters in our boiler rooms with our air handling equipment, as well as the unit ventilators in classrooms on a periodic basis and a normal schedule, either annually, biannually, or quarterly, depending on the specifications of the equipment. All of those filters have been changed recently, and we're that's just another area that we've tried to maintain a high level of inventory so that if any replacements are needed during this time, we're able to address that quickly. Thank you.
Okay, and so we are going to be scheduling the other buildings, right?
And I'm sorry, because Ms. Hannah, I think when you talk about what they are talking is a complete overhaul. It's a different types of systems, and so that's why when we're getting into the weeds, I wanted to be very specific about where I know there were some major concerns. As Mr. Moten said, certain schools have already had this type of systems. Certain schools like at Abbott have we replaced it with AC. Miguel Juarez, since it was built, had air conditioner, and so that wouldn't be a building that would need these type of systems. So I think when we start going school by school, if there are more questions, but just are we going to upgrade all the schools? I don't know if that's they're prepared to answer that question this evening as right now.
Well, I understand. So maybe at the next board meeting or something, someone can answer the question regarding the schools that I have not heard them talk about, because staff and students have to go in all the buildings, and we want all the buildings safe. You know, and so that's my question.
Yeah, and I think we all know is we want all the buildings safe. So I agree with you, Ms. Hannah. Is we're not saying that this building will be safe and this one won't. I'm just saying there are different systems that we're using at the different buildings, and that's based on year of the building, based on equipment that already was available, as well as some upgrades that were done even previous to COVID. So and same. Only thing that I will say is I hope that the community realizes is that my son in these classrooms, my wife is an early childhood educator. None of these decisions that I'm making are done in isolation or because I feel like it won't impact me or my family. So those who've asked me to come and attend or visit classrooms, I did it pre-pandemic. I'll do it during the pandemic. I'll do it after the pandemic. So that is why, it was important for the board, is because we hear the concerns. So when you tell us there's something that we're not seeing or hearing, it was important that along with the administration, we walk the buildings so that we did see what you see and how our purchase will impact you. So when people are asking if we care about the kids, every decision that I've made through this entire pandemic, whether I'm getting hate mail because we've remained closed as long as we are, has been done with safety in mind. Right. Every decision, from talking to the superintendent about making sure that, as she said, we listen. We want more time for the inoculation period. The board, the administration, the superintendent, we heard you. I think things that have been made tonight, they're valid. And so there will be conversations that are had. There will be additional opportunities to answer questions. But when we're stating these are the things that have been done, I don't know. I have no reason to lie to anybody, right? I have no reason to willingly try and put people in harm's way. And so I feel that the board as well as administration have that same belief. And so I just had to put that out there on the record because there's a lot of insinuation. There's a lot of insinuation, right, that the board doesn't care or we don't see or we're not impacted by these decisions. And that is not the case.
Absolutely, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President. And I did notice some the principals cared, I think, terrifically. The ones that I visited today, they took me around. They showed me classrooms and areas that they would not be using because they did not feel they were safe. They only expect 25 to 35% of the students to return. They have social distancing. The desks are spaced. If a classroom was too small to do that, they weren't going to use it. They had piled empty classrooms. They had gymnasiums and cafeterias and libraries filled with storage. So they're not, they're doing as much as they can. Each of them seem to care very deeply about the safety of their staff and their students that were going to be returning. And anyway, but I agree with what you said, Mr. President.
And this is Leguizamo, and I hear so much that these schools look very different from when we last left them. I haven't seen it. My tour is coming up, but speaking about the tours coming up, maybe Foreman Frankie can attach a GoPro on his helmet and take a tour with us and spread that along with the community so the community can see that as well. Just food for thought for Mr. Foreman Frankie.
Mr. President, I did see a couple of teachers actually teaching from their classrooms too. So some of them feel safe already and they've returned.
Agreed. Like I said, is what we're doing is we're preparing for the students. I think so the community knows what I've been doing is I've been meeting with other board presidents through the IESB of other large school districts. I've been able to learn from some successes as well as some mistakes, and any feedback that I believe was appropriate, I provided to the administration, who are the ones who are leading this effort. So I think Ms. Hannah continues to raise valid points as we want to make sure, like with our PPE, with what we're purchasing, right? We hear concerns about will there be paper towels? Will there be masks? And it comes from, unfortunately, just we hear it often is there have been times where we have not had everything that we've needed in District 60, right? Some of us have been around for a while, and I'm not saying that like I have, right? But Ms. Hannah knows when we would hear about rationing of printer paper and other items that were done, you know, where teachers felt like they didn't always have the resources and supplies that they needed. And so I get the angst and the concern. It's based on a belief. I don't know. We keep getting the same question too. So, Superintendent, I guess the only thing that I can say, and I'll move on to new business, is there has to be an opportunity for the staff to be able to ask questions, or a one centralized place that they can go and get their questions answered. And I know we have been providing opportunities through Facebook and YouTube live events. There have been other surveys and things that are going out. So understand me, to everybody, is we're getting to the point where I'm proud that our community has not I'm proud that our community has not been at war with each other. Right? We don't have people picketing outside of Lincoln Center one way or the other. We've taken advice. We've provided the data as to what's guiding our decision. We stayed closed even when it was the unpopular decision, because it was supported by science and data. And so as we move forward together as a unit, I am praying, I am begging, I am pleading that we not turn away from each other in this moment, but we have the tough conversations. We realize what it is that we want to do and what it is that we want to achieve, and we move in that route. So yeah, I think that's the only thing. I don't know, Board of Education, I'm not asking for official action, but Superintendent, that is what I believe the board wants, is there to be an opportunity for the staff to get their questions or be able to ask their questions. And personally, I think that that should be in a format that is separate from the one that is for parents and students.
Right.
With that, I know there might be other new business items. It is now 10 p.m. So this is 4 hours into a meeting. So because there are no other, unless there are legal reports, Ms. Vanderbroek, Mr. Morris, I'm gonna go to board member time, and then I'm going to adjourn.
Can I go first? And it's nothing big, but I just want to
Is it board member time, Ms. Hannah, or?
Yeah. Board member time, yeah.
Mr. Morris, do you have any legal reports?
No, sir, nothing. We have some things to talk about, but we'll wait until another meeting. Nothing critical tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And same, the Q&A, that's why I say this should be appropriate. We all use GoToMeeting. So I think the district has a lot of resources, as we've all been working remotely outside of social media for staff. And once again, the board sets the ends. So we're not going to determine how that is done. But I think the superintendent, has heard the ask and the request from staff. We are now at board member time. So Ms. Hannah, you requested to go first.
Yeah, just a couple things. This month, we're celebrating Women's History Month, and according to the Illinois School Code 105, Illinois compiled statutes 527-25.5, that we should be having a study of women's history built into our curriculum. I'm not sure that we do. I certainly hope that that we do, just the same as Black history. And also, I was looking at the the enrollment and attendance reports that was sent, and the format for the enrollment report to me is insufficient, and I would like to see the changes in total. I want to know the numbers of students that we have, plus the information that was sent. And also, I was a little confused about the high school, particularly grade 12, because according to the attendance, we are at 74.72%. And I just wanted to know, where are the other 25.28% 12th grade students? And are they on track to graduate, and what's going on with them? And so maybe at the next board meeting or something, maybe someone could answer that question for me, because 74% of our 12th graders, okay, and remember the 12th graders are supposed to graduate. So where are the rest of our senior students? That's it, Mr. President, and hopefully we can get an answer to that at the next meeting or something.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ms. Wozniak.
I want to tag in on that Women's History Month. It's yesterday was International Women's History Day, and happy belated Women's History Day. 3 things that are happening in the foundation. We did a desk giveaway a couple of weeks ago at Lion Magnet. It was very successful. I think we gave away about 400 desks and probably about 600 chairs. We may have more in the future, so watch us on Facebook. We do post there, and we'll let you know if we're going to have another giveaway. Adriana Gonzalez already mentioned March 15th is the deadline for the Waukegan Strong Scholarship. It's $5,000. Encourage your students, friends, family members to apply. And I don't know if I'm allowed to mention this, but I'm gonna. The foundation also got a donation of 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer for a total of $75,984 from Luxor Workspaces. And the president is Paul Roach, and they're located in Waukegan. And we thank them very much for their generous donation. And I'm grateful that all the teachers have had the opportunity to get vaccinated and even get their second shot. I'm looking forward to getting my own soon. Hopefully they'll call my number soon. And have a great week.
Thank you, Ms. Wozniak. Mr. McBride.
For the sake of time, I'll pass, Brandon.
Mr. Castellanos.
Thank you. I just want to quickly thank everyone who was a part of creating the hybrid plan and everyone who prepared our buildings. And I want to thank every board member who did and is going to visit the buildings to share what they saw and answer any questions for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levis.
Hi, yes, thank you. Really quick, I just saw in the chat someone posted in regards to desk giveaways from the Waukegan Public Schools Foundation. Just really quick, if you can go on Facebook and go on the page, it's Waukegan Public Schools Foundation. and send a message in the foundation that you would like 3 desks. And what we'll do is that we'll add you onto that list. Okay, just really quick. I just wanted to make that comment really there for you. But I, once again, wanted to say thanks everyone for joining us with us tonight. For the superintendent, I know I've been talking a little bit more about curriculum, and I said I'm going to be focusing more on curriculum a lot this year. I have been looking at the legislations that have been passed through committee last week, and there were 10 bills that was passed last week through committee. 3 of them are on my radar that I'm hoping that maybe we don't have to wait for legislation in order for us to implement it in our school district. And really quick, I'll also send an email, but it's HB 156, and that is to provide feminine menstrual products at every bathroom at 0 cost for our students. And then also House Bill 24, and that is to include sexting in our sex ed course. And House Bill 160, which requires schools to excuse students in participating in gym if they are fasting for religious reasons. So those were some amazing ideas, and going through legislation now. They're currently bills, but I really feel that we can be ahead of the curve on that and don't really have to wait for them to pass that. So I'll send an email on those House bills that I'm looking at, but we have the emails that we get on a random basis whenever they meet. So thanks again, everyone. Those were my time. I yield the rest of my time there. Thank you, Board President.
Thank you. Mr. Riddle.
Just want to thank all of our teachers who have, I feel, have done an amazing job in this past year in coping with the remote learning and all the staff that supported them in that endeavor. It's something we never thought we'd have to go through. We've learned something because of it. And this transition, you know, we hear your pain. It's going to be difficult. There's risk involved with everything that we do. But so many of our children are ready to get back into in-person learning. I've talked to some in our community who say their children are suffering. Parents who told me their kids are gaining weight. They're isolating. They don't know how to cope with this. Some of those parents need to have an option to send their kid back to, or their student back to in-person learning, and we're trying to do that as safely and as reasonably as we can. And I want to thank all of our staff who have worked so hard in making our schools safe. And we know that the light is at the end of the tunnel. We have to return, and I think this is the time to do it. So I support what the district administration and staff are doing. And trying to get us back to school for those parents and children that want it and need it safely this year. So bear with us. I know as we work together on this, it's going to be possible to do it. Thank you.
Spoken a lot this evening. I hope that the community has heard my heart and the heart of those who serve on this board with me. No decision that we make is easy. As the superintendent said, is in our letter, is we're looking at the metrics, we're following it. You were heard, your comments were heard. We are getting emails and support and against, right? We're on social media and people are reaching out in support of it and against. And I reiterate is that I hope that as a community, we don't turn away from each other, but we turn towards each other because that is how we will get through this. And so I understand the fear, I understand the concerns, and we will do whatever we can to address those fears and concerns. And as Mr. Riddle said, there is, I'm now hearing from students who are reaching out personally because they are struggling, right? So I think everything that is that we heard this evening, know that you were heard, right? Will that change? Will that mean we stick to the same? Does that mean, by any means? Like, it means that we heard you and we're taking that into account, and the administration will have the necessary conversations to make sure that we move forward in a safe manner. And I hope that our actions throughout this entire pandemic reassure you that that is what we've been doing. So with that, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McBride, second by Ms. Leguizamo. Any comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan Wozniak,
Yes.
Ms. Leguizamo,
Yes, thank you and have a good night.
Mr. Castellanos,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Have a good night.